astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. If you guys would like your own natal chart reading, synastry reading, progress natal chart reading, mini natal chart reading, mini synastry reading, the information for all of that is going to be in the description box below. You guys can go under the readings tab. An email window should pop up. You guys can send me an email and we will go from there. Welcome to everyone joining. Yes, something happened, but I am back. I'm back over here. So how's it going? What is new? What should we talk about today, you guys? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about the natal charts, your natal charts, whatever you guys would like to know about today. What should we talk about today? I am back. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Also, if you guys are interested in astro guidance, so in my astro guidance packages, I have 3 sessions and then 2 sessions as well. Hey everyone, how are you guys doing? What is new? What's the 411? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So in those sessions, basically we go over your natal charts in depth. So honestly, there's so much to say when you look at a natal chart. So if there's anything specific you guys would like to go over and really focus on, those are one-on-one sessions. And then also the other thing that I have as well is going to be business guidance. And then I also have the social media guidance as well. So check all of that out. It's going to be on my website, okay? And anytime you guys basically quote unquote try to book something, an email window will pop up so you guys can send me an email. So that's how you can book. Hey Krupa, basically what I was saying was I have to make a video on that in particular. Usually the more minor aspects, they are a little bit more subtle in your natal chart, so they don't really take over, but they're still there, of course. So I'll do a video one day and I'll go in depth so you guys can get a little bit more information about that. Hey Sylvie, you said, no, you said, do I prefer Davison charts or composite? I don't have any preference. You said, hey, Life of the Aspirant and Courageous, how are you doing? You said, can I give you a quick info about the Pisces midheaven? Okay, so Pisces midheaven is really interesting. So if you have a Pisces midheaven, if you have Neptune in the 10th, if you have Neptune aspecting the midheaven, okay? Basically what this signifies is, first of all, when it comes to your work and when it comes to your career, you don't see this area clearly, okay? So you might want to do everything. You don't know where to start. You're not grounded. You're operating on the spiritual planes versus down here on this earth plane. It's a struggle. Honestly, you guys, anytime you have Pisces in your chart, Neptune aspects, like all of that is a struggle because of the fact that like those energies are outside of this realm. I hope that makes sense. So because it's the 10th house and it comes to career, it's like you might not know where to start, for example, or you want to do everything. You have all these dreams, you have all these visions of what you want to do, but you don't know where to start. Okay, so it could be this, for example, that takes place for Pisces in the 10th house, or it's like you want to do everything, but it's like down here on this earth plane, you can't really do everything. Do you know what I mean? It's like you have to pick one thing and focus on that one thing. That's like the Virgo energy. So Pisces midheaven or any Pisces energy in a chart, for it to work down here, you basically have to pull, quote unquote, from the Virgo energy, okay? Yes, Krupa, I will definitely do that. I will definitely create a video about that for you guys. So that's the thing. So it's like Pisces midheaven in terms of work, like you want to do something spiritual. There's going to be a spiritual undertone here, but the struggle is like, you know, people aren't really that spiritual. I hope that makes sense. So it's like, it could be hard to deliver the message. You'll have to figure out a way to deliver it so the everyday person can understand. I mean, you'll find spiritual people always, you know what I mean? Like you will always find your community. It's just like, it's going to probably be less people compared to the everyday person, right? Because you know, most people aren't in tune with their spirituality is really, really what it is. So, hey, Infinite Zebra, I'm so happy that you're here too. And then, hey, DNA, how are you guys doing? So that's the struggle with the, okay, so Neptune aspecting the midheaven and the midheaven in Pisces and having Pisces in the 10th house as well, okay? All of those energies are a struggle because it's like you want to do something spiritual and then you kind of want to do everything. So you might want to do art, you might want to do music, you might want to do, you know, tarot, you might want to do the metaphysical world, you might want to be a psychic. It depends on the rest of the energies in your chart. But again, you can't do everything. So what the best thing to do is to do one thing first, try to perfect it, and then move on to the next thing. Like I hope that makes sense because those are the energies that prosper down here, okay, on this earth plane. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. Make sure you guys like the live. You can like the live by double tapping on the screen. If you guys are watching the live replay, you can hit the like button. You said natal sun / moon midpoint in Aquarius. So you have sun and moon in Aquarius. Is that what's going on? Hey, White Orchards. Hey, guys. How you guys doing? I'm glad you guys are able to be here today. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. I kind of went on a little bit earlier to catch all of you that I don't catch in the later lives that I do. So feel free to ask any questions. How are the vibes for you guys? Yes, I am back. You said, okay, so you said part of fortune is that 0 degrees Leo in the 9th house. Okay, so if it is at 0 degrees, it's super potent. Basically, ways that you can make money could be through Leo types of things, and then in the 9th house, like area of life. So what could this be? For example, it could be like, let's say you are interested in acting or theater or creative types of things, or, you know, like being silly and goofy and being on a stage. Like that's a Leo energy. And in the 9th house, that could kind of be delivered in the way of like teaching, because that 9th house like learns and then teaches. I hope that makes sense. Give me 1 second, you guys. Okay, I am back. Oh my gosh, hey Riley, how are you doing? Hey Linda. So yeah, so those are some ways that you can make money. It could be through learning and teaching. It could be through, if it's a 9th house, it can be like motivational speaking. It could be, you know, spiritual things like teaching about philosophy, but because Leo's in there, it might be like a creative way of delivering the message, for example. So yes, anytime you act in this direction, you basically activate quote unquote abundance for you. Part of fortune is basically the area in your life where you guys can quote unquote activate luck and fortune and abundance, basically is what it is. So usually it should tell you anytime you look up your natal chart, but I'm sure you can find calculators online, like type in like part of fortune calculator, and then it'll tell you what sign is it in and what house is it in. And you need, can you guys hear me? Let me know. Let's see. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Okay, good. Good. Okay, you said 0 degree Pisces rising. You said you feel so Aquarian. That can happen sometimes because it's like, it depends the way that your houses get divided. Do you know what I mean? Because you might have an interception, and then some of your houses could be like the quote unquote houses, let's say for an Aquarius rising, like late degree Aquarius rising. I hope that makes sense. But maybe there's something else taking place in your chart that's like 11th house energy or Uranus energy, or maybe it's the transits, for example, as well. That could be kind of bringing that Aquarian energy out of you, or maybe like, let's say your 7 life path or something of that sort. Not that 7 means Aquarius, but that's just how it feels to me, like the 7 life path in numerology, and also the 7-day number. It kind of feels like an Aquarius energy to me. So it could be this, but yeah, 0 degrees Pisces rising, honestly, like you basically have this like healing vibe to you. You're going in the direction of a healer in this lifetime as a Pisces rising. You know, you could be a creative, you could be a mystic, you could be, you know, a metaphysical practitioner, you could be a psychic with that energy, but you'll never see yourself clearly, okay? That's the trouble. So Pisces rising or Neptune in the 1st house, you don't really see yourself clearly, okay? So that's the struggle, okay? In terms of the Pisces rising. You said, is there strong manifestors other than, you said, is there quote unquote strong manifestors than others, or stronger manifestors than others that can be shown in astrology that may hold back some and ignite others more? Do I think anybody can strengthen their abilities despite astrology? I mean, you could. Honestly, all you have to do in terms of like learning about manifestation and manifestation energy is you have to learn about sexual energy, okay? And unfortunately, like down here on this earth plane, like the sexual energy is targeted, okay, from a young age. People, you know, either go into repression of sexuality, or they go into hypersexuality, or, you know, they carry shame. Like it's all the sacral chakra that basically gets targeted, allegedly, in my opinion. So because of this, it affects your manifestor's ability. So in a natal chart, yes, you'll see people who have more of this potential, but sometimes, you know, they don't know what to do with that energy. Do you know what I mean? Like they can go into hypersexuality and then they just like deplete themselves and they deplete their life force energy, and they're not actually manifesting. And then in that case, they could actually potentially be used as a battery pack for another person, right? So you have to learn all about sexual energy and how sexual energy actually works, and to push the energy upwards and then actually like invest it into creative ventures is really what it is. So in a nutshell, it's this. Check out a lot of my videos where I do talk about Scorpio energy and sexual energy, and also have a video on the sacral chakra and sexual energy as well. So check out all of those videos because I go in depth in terms of basically the sexual energy is really what it is, and the wound that takes place in here within the collective, and then also, you know, how to kind of clear it, okay? Because you're gonna have to clear it for yourself to be able to manifest is really what it is, okay? What would you like to know about Taurus? And Taurus in what placement? Good, I'm glad that it resonated. You said you also have Lilith at 0 degrees Virgo in your 9th house. Lilith at 0 degrees Virgo. I can see that manifesting into someone who might be a hypochondriac when it comes to their sexuality. I hope that makes sense. So it's like, you know, like the Virgo shadow energy, like I understand like being health conscious, but sometimes they go to the point where it's like they're like extreme germaphobes, where it's like everything has to be like washed like 5 times and so on and so forth for like it to feel clean for them. I don't know, that just kind of came through. So it could be this for the Lilith and Virgo, but in general, like Lilith can be your sexuality. It's usually like the dark quote unquote sexuality aspect of the self, or like the suppressed aspect of the self, but it could also be your dark side, right? So your quote unquote dark side or your shadow self can deal with, for example, being a hypochondriac, like I mentioned, in general about other things in life, okay? Being a perfectionist, fearing criticism, all of these things. And it's in the 9th house. This can be around like belief systems, you know, struggling to express maybe belief systems, or, you know, I can even see this manifesting into, I'm not saying this is you, but I can see this potentially manifesting into someone who is a cult leader, okay? Because you might have this weight of delivering information if it goes into the shadow or like the dark side, where, you know, people are willing to listen because of the way you deliver the information. I hope that makes sense. Hey, Silveras, how are you doing? How are you guys doing? Hey, you guys, I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. I'm glad that that resonated. I'm just going to go back up to see if I may have missed anything you guys said up here. I'm doing an earlier live today for the international people. What is new, you guys? Having Lilith. Okay, let me know which house inspired soul do you have Lilith in? The area of life. So for you guys to understand, okay, you have the placement, and the placement is what the energy means, okay? So for example, sun is the ego, it can be the father, moon is the emotions, it can be the mother, right? And then you have the sign, which is how the energy is being expressed, okay? And then the house is the area of life where that energy is being expressed, okay? So that's how you guys can differentiate between, you know, the placement, like what the placement is, and then, you know, the sign, and then the house, okay? So there is a difference. It's not all the same thing, because again, the houses are the area of life where the energy gets expressed for you guys, and then the sign is how that energy gets expressed. You said you're super scared of getting an STD when you were young. You said married now, and you said you do like clean, sexy time. Okay, that's good. Well, there you go. I'm glad that that resonated. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. You said you have a Scorpio stellium in the 9th house. You hate traveling. Scorpio is fixed. Maybe that's why. Maybe that is why. If you guys would like a reading, you guys can send me an email. I have natal chart readings, progressed natal chart readings, synastry readings, mini natal chart, and mini synastry readings. Okay, those are all available on my website. Okay, so for people watching the live replay, it's going to be in the description box below. If you're just tuning into the live, you can go on my page, and under the About Me tab, that's where my website is. Send me an email. So when you guys book the reading, when you guys click the book section, okay, or button, it will bring up a window, okay? And then the window will be an email window, okay? And that's how it's supposed to be. And then you guys can send me an email, okay? And then we'll go from there. I'll give you guys the information about turnaround time and all of that, okay? After you guys send me the email, okay? With that being said, if the email window doesn't pop up for whatever reason, my email is at the bottom of the page, okay? So that's how you guys can basically schedule the reading. And my readings are videos that I send you guys of me talking, okay, is really what it is. So I go over your natal chart in depth is really what it is. And I go off, so, and I talk fast. So that's just what it is. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. You said you're a Libra rising. Oh, I like your name. You said you're a Libra rising, Taurus sun, Cancer moon. What sign placement should you avoid in love? Libra rising, Taurus, probably the mutable energies. I'm going to say the mutable energies. You're probably going to get along with other cardinal or fixed energies. the mutable energies are probably not going to vibe with you. Also, you're a Cancer moon, so you probably need people who also have water in their charts, okay? And with your energy in there, I'm not sure if you're going to vibe with the fire signs. I mean, you're a Libra rising, maybe like for fun, but for long term, like they might annoy you. Let me just say that. They could be overly impulsive, for example. It depends if they're in the light side or in the shadow side. But yeah, Libra rising. Ironically, like being a Libra rising and then you have Aries in the 7th house, you might actually attract like Aries types of characters or like fiery types of people because of the Aries in the 7th house. But it's a struggle because it's like Libra's all nice, right? And then the fire signs can be a little bit too, you know, forward, I guess. You said you have Mars and Sag. Is it intercepted in your charts? Can you let me know? Is it, because I'm curious to know, like, what is the reason here that you don't like traveling? Maybe something that'll be activated later on in life. Sagittarius ascendant, can you tell me, do you have Scorpio occupying your 12th house? If you have, okay, so if you have a Sag ascendant and you have Scorpio in the 12th, I find this energy to be a struggle. First of all, like Sag ascendants are mutable, so they struggle to get rooted in whatever it is that they want to do. Like it's fire. Like the good thing about Sag is like it's masculine energy, right? So it is going to initiate the energy is going to start things, you know, but it's mutable. So it's like, you know, things might get boring for them, so they might drop it, they might forget what they're doing, they might find something else that's more interesting. Sometimes with the mutable energies, I find with them, it's kind of like who's in front of them or what's in front of them in that moment. I hope that makes sense. Like it's really hard to make a plan with these people, okay? But when they're with you, they're a lot of fun. Do you know what I mean? Like all of the mutable energies, like if you catch them and you're there in the moment with them, it is amazing. But it's like in the morning, you can make a plan with a mutable sign, and by the evening, they just found something else to do. And it's like not anything personal or anything like that. It's just the nature of the energy. You know what I mean? They're very much about like what is in front of them, which could be a struggle because Sag, I find, sometimes can struggle with discipline. Because Sag is like sandwiched between Scorpio and Capricorn. Do you know what I mean? So they haven't mastered the discipline of Capricorn yet, okay? But they're meant to. And they're coming out of Scorpio, which is like they want the power. You know what I mean? So it's like you can't get any of these things if you're all over the place, you know? And that's the struggle for this energy. So that's a struggle. But then if you have Scorpio in the 12th, for example, like let's say you're a Sag rising first house and then you have Scorpio in the 12th, the struggle here is like not only do you have all this mutable energy going on, it's like you also have a lot to clear in the unconscious. So there's a lot going on, okay? If you have Scorpio in the 12th, sometimes people who are Sag risings don't have Scorpio in the 12th. You said you're a Sag rising. There you go. Yeah, it's a struggle. Like the energy struggles to be rooted in something because Sag is all about, you know, what is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of life? So they're all about like, you know, something that's greater and higher, and they feel like they're being led by something. And like along the way, you know, in all of these adventures and escapades that they get involved in, they can burn a lot of bridges, right? So for them, it's all about learning to ground, okay? Which is interesting because a lot of the time, let me think, I'm pretty sure for the Sag rising, the 9th house is going to be Cancer, which is so interesting because you guys are meant to learn from Cancer types of people, but you guys might not vibe with Cancer types of people, okay? And that's if everything goes into the house. Sometimes there's interceptions taking place in all of this. So let me think. Sag in the 1st, your descendant, which is the 7th, is going to be Gemini. Hold on a second. Actually, no. Cancer would go into the 8th house for you guys, which is actually even worse because then your shadow side or your suppressed self is Cancer. So it depends. Sometimes people have interceptions, so like the houses aren't going to go into like each of the, you know, actual house. For example, it could be something different, but let's say you are a Sag rising, everything is in the house that it's supposed to be in. Your 7th house is going to be Gemini, and then your 8th house is going to be Cancer. So the shadow of the self is Cancer. So you guys are basically meant to integrate that energy of like finding the home, but you guys have such a hard time getting rooted anywhere. Do you know what I mean? But the thing is, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Because we go through secondary progression, sometimes this energy is meant to roam around and have fun and like, you know, be everywhere for that certain period of time, and then they progress into the next energy eventually. But yeah, you're meant to eventually learn from Capricorn is really what it is in terms of like going into the Capricorn energy, learning about discipline to get what you want down here on this earth plane. Do you know what I mean? That's where Sag struggles, I find. Sagittarius as an energy overall, they struggle in being grounded because again, it's the you know, half human, half horse energy. Like they're shooting up into the sky, you know? It's an energy that's not grounded down here, you know? Anything from Scorpio onwards, like the spiritual energies really struggle, okay? They really struggle down here because they're not rooted in the material so much, you know, other than I guess Capricorn, but Capricorn is spiritual in their own way. but they're able to ground, okay, like these visions and so on and so forth, versus the rest of the signs from Scorpio onwards. Like they are operating in the spiritual planes, and that's a struggle because the world is not spiritual, it is a material plane. You know what I mean? Let's see. What else are you guys saying in here? Thank you, thank you, thank you. You said, how do interceptions play out? Okay, because your 4th and your 10th house are intercepted by Taurus and Scorpio. So I have a video on here, you guys. It should be under my miscellaneous playlist. If you don't find it there, just type it into the search bar, interceptions or intercepted signs and houses, and then Barbara Talks. Okay, I'm sure it'll come up. But anyways, if I remember when I'm rewatching this after to put it in the description box below, I will add it after, okay? So that's just like a note to self. But anyways, basically what an interception is the energy in your chart is swallowed up, okay? So what does this mean? This means that now this energy, and by the way, I'm not a psychologist, that's always my disclaimer, but everything stems from the home and the original 2 caregivers. So for whatever reason, when you guys were younger, you weren't able to express this aspect of the self, okay? For you, it's the 4th and the 10th house, and now it's in Taurus and it's in Scorpio. Can you tell me, is Taurus in the 4th and Scorpio in the 10th, okay? Because that's interesting, because you're going to have the 4th and the 10th in another sign as well that's not intercepted. And now behind the scenes, you have it in Taurus and Scorpio. So the 4th and 10th house axis, there's something going on here in terms of like the mother and the father, like not seeing them clearly, for example. And the thing is, for me, like when I see an intercepted energy in a chart, it draws my attention to that energy even more because it's now suppressed within the self. So when you have a suppression of energy within the self, what I find, at least, and again, I'm not a psychologist, but it tends to go into the shadow of the energy first because you don't know how to express it. So you might suppress it and then it goes into the shadow. It still has to come out. Do you know what I mean? Or it can go into an excess, like when you're trying to balance the energies within. You said Capricorn rising with Neptune, Uranus in the 1st house. Yeah, that's the struggle. That is the struggle because it's that Neptune in the 1st house. The thing is, I find these water energies in a chart, you guys, to be so strong. Like the Scorpio, Pisces, 8th house, 12th house, like they take the chart over. Like they really take over the chart because, again, they're feminine energies within, and those energies aren't expressed down here on this earth plane. People don't know how to express them, first of all. Second of all, you know, it's like the jobs and the way that the structure is shadow masculine. It's not even actually masculine in my own opinion, but anyways, it's a shadow masculine structure. So it's like you then go into your feminine energy more, right? So then you struggle to operate within the masculine structure, okay? So that's the struggle. So these energies struggle with that. And then the other thing is a lot of the task for these energies is to actually clear energy. Okay. So you're basically purifying the energy of the earth through your vessel, but is anybody paying you for that? Like, you know what I mean? That's the struggle. You know what I mean? And then also any sort of feminine energy leaning profession. And this has nothing to do with gender, you guys. This is just the energy that you were born into. Your more feminine energy leaning. Let's say you have 8th house, 12th house, Scorpio energy, or if you have, for example, Pisces too. Cancer is there, but Cancer, I find, because they deal with the home and the 4th house, like, yes, they can be watery, and yes, absolutely, they can also struggle with working. I mean, I did those shorts down on this like page too, like where I talked about the Cancer energy, but it's like, with Cancer, I find they get more overwhelmed energetically, like, or more easily overwhelmed with like energies around them. But same thing, like all of the water energies in a chart basically are here to cleanse the energy, and you're merging to others, and now you are clearing for them. And it's a lot because people have a lot of unprocessed things, and it just is even more unfortunate because it's like you're doing this anyways, but you're not being paid for it, or this energy is not being acknowledged, or it's not something that's being seen. Do you know what I mean? So that's the struggle because, again, just the way that the world is at this point in time, because it is capitalistic, and it's like people put value on things that they invest financially into, or like jobs or whatever, right? Again, you know, things that are paid that are more masculine energy leaning, like those are the things that I guess are more appreciated down here on this airplane, even though there's this whole other spiritual story where the feminine energies are clearing, okay? So I just find that these energies take over the chart regardless of whatever is going on in there, because again, the energy could also, this is regardless of interceptions, by the way, this is just something different in general, like with the feminine energies in a chart, they take over the water energies, okay? Because it's either suppressed, or you don't know how to deal with it, or you don't have anyone to express to, or you're psychic, or you didn't know how to get in tune with your psychic gifts and abilities, you don't know what's going on, it's labeled in the shadow way, you know, it's just like really interesting. So this airplane is just like such an interesting place to be a part of as a feminine energy leaning person, okay? Let's see. Hey, Nate, Time, how are you doing? You said, okay, so it's in Taurus, is in your 4th and 5th house, and then Scorpio is in the 10th, 11th. Okay, so I'm curious to know, Because, okay, the interception is when the energy is swallowed up in your chart, okay? So you have an excess of this energy, which is part of the interception. So if you have Taurus in the 4th and you have it in the 5th, and then you have Scorpio in the 10th and you have it in the 11th, I'm curious to know what is intercepted in the chart, because there's two other energies that then technically don't have a house. So you have to look at the chart and see what sign is missing, okay? Whatever sign is quote unquote missing, you can see it from the list, okay, when it says the houses. What sign is missing, that's the intercepted sign. And then to figure out what house that sign would belong to. So for example, let's say it's Gemini for you, okay? Gemini's quote unquote missing for the list, and then automatically Sag, you look at the preceding energy, which would be Taurus, okay? And then you look and see what house is Taurus in, and that's going to be the intercepted energy for Gemini. So it would technically be Gemini in the 5th house intercepted, and then it's always the oppositional energy. But again, preceding Sag is Scorpio, and it's like in this list, because you have Taurus in the 4th and the 5th, it's the one that's right above it, okay? So right above it is going to be Taurus in the 5th. So that means Gemini is in the 5th intercepted. And then same thing is going to be the oppositional energy. Okay. But that's going to be different for different people in their natal chart. So that's actually the intercepted energy in your chart, and the intercepted access. You actually have the excess of the Taurus and Scorpio energy taking place in your chart. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Okay. So it's Aries and Libra. Okay. So can you tell me what house, okay, would Aries and Libra technically belong to if they had a house? So for Aries, you want to look and see what house is Pisces in, okay? The house Pisces is in, that's the house that Aries is intercepted in. And then Libra, you look at Virgo, okay? So it's the preceding sign. What house is Virgo in? That is the house that Libra is going to be intercepted in, okay? So if you know, you can let me know, and then I'll tell you more information, or you can check, okay? And then exactly, so that's the thing. So I notice right away when I look at a chart if there's an interception taking place, and then you can also have intercepted placements, okay? So in your case, you have Aries, Mars, and Libra Moon intercepted in your chart, okay? Okay, so you have Aries, hold on. I'm curious to know, Aries 4th, but they're pushed into the 3rd and the 9th. It can't be that. It has to be what's before Aries and what's before Libra, okay? So it could be the 3rd and the 9th, because you have Scorpio, Taurus in the 4th and the 10th. I'm trying to think now. So probably in your chart, the way that it looks is, I have to see this visually, but you probably then have, can you tell me what house you have Pisces and Virgo in, okay? Because if you have Pisces in the 3rd and then Virgo in the 9th, I can see that playing out. I'm curious to know. Or you can just check, like, what house do you have your Aries, Mars in, and what house do you have the Libra Moon in? Hey, everyone. Okay, Lilith and Pisces in the 2nd house. Okay, it's in the 3rd and the 9th. Okay, so that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. So you technically then have Aries in the 3rd house intercepted, and you have Libra in the 9th intercepted. I find this really interesting when I see this interception taking place. Hey, everyone, I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. So you now have the access intercepted of the self and the other, okay? So probably when you were growing up, and this is just, again, I'm not a psychologist, it's my disclaimer, but again, everything stems from the home. The energy was suppressed within you to express the self, probably, okay? So you probably were in a home where the energy was very enmeshed, or everyone was kind of like an extension of each other. So you struggled to express the self, which is Aries, or the Libra energy, which is, you know, getting together with other people, okay? Or maybe go into extreme codependency. So you can either go into extreme energy of like not being able to express the self, or you go into extreme codependency where you, again, don't know who you are because you're too merged to the people around you. So you're trying to balance this energy within the self. So you could go through a phase in life where you go extreme into Aries, for example, to neutralize. So what, you guys, when you're neutralizing energies within the self, okay? I call this a pendulum swing. You go into the extremes of the energies, okay, until you neutralize somewhere in the middle. So for example, with the Aries Libra axis, you could go into the extreme energy at one point in your life of being by yourself, doing your own thing, only thinking about yourself, okay? Because maybe you came out of the extreme shadow Libra, which was maybe codependency, always with other people and so on and so forth, but you want to, you know, eventually neutralize somewhere in the middle where you have the sense of self, but you're able to be in partnerships with other people. I hope that that makes sense, okay? Oh, good. I'm glad that that's resonating, okay? The next thing here in this story as well, okay, is the fact that you have the 3rd house and the 9th house intercepted as well, okay? So this is now going to be the houses of education, okay? So something probably took place where maybe you struggled in school, you weren't able to express, you know, maybe struggle with learning, maybe learn in a different way or something of this sort, okay? Because you have Aries in the third, something could be happening here where when it came to school, you maybe wanted to do your own thing or something of that sort. And because of the enmeshment, there's something going on with the enmeshment in the family, especially if you have Scorpio in the fourth, okay? Where they're too like all up in each other's business. So they could have wanted you to do something, okay? But the whole thing here is that you're meant to kind of step away and do your own thing. Because look, you even have Aries, Mars, and Libra moon intercepted. So the Libra moon for you is the struggle because again, you could potentially go into people pleasing, okay? And not put things into action, which is the Aries, Mars. Like Aries, Mars is an amazing energy, but it's intercepted in your chart. So it's swelled up in your chart. So you could struggle to pick the self, choose the self, do what you want because it's connected to the home, okay? I hope that makes sense. And the upbringing because of Libra moon. There's like a people-pleasing energy where you could be unconsciously pleasing the family around you, okay? Because of this enmeshment energy, but you're meant to separate, okay? And when I say separate, you can still have them in your life, but you're meant to do your own thing, okay? Because it's the Aries energy. Because Aries is always meant to separate from the family in terms of like the expectation of the family. Does that make sense? Like you can still have them in your life. It doesn't have to be extreme, but it's like you're meant to stand up for yourself and do your own thing, okay? There you go. There you go. You said you come from a family of teachers. Your brother taught at your elementary school, so a lot of trauma there. There it is, okay? Okay. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions. I will get to your questions, you guys. You don't have to type it 50 times in the chat, okay? You said Lilith in Pisces, second house, and then you said Saturn and Aquarius in the second house. Okay, so Lilith in Pisces, basically, okay, the Lilith in Pisces can be a struggle because Lilith can be the sexuality aspect of the self. It could also be the shadow of the self, okay? So when you have Lilith in Pisces, there could be this aspect of the self where there's like no boundaries when it comes to sexuality. So this could be another one of those energies that could be very sexually free, okay? You know, I'm not saying it's you, but it could manifest in this way, or that could be a suppressed aspect of the self, okay? Maybe you're interested in exploring this, but it's suppressed because it's Lilith, okay? It could be suppressed within the self. Now, Lilith and Pisces can also be a struggle because this energy could also struggle with boundaries. For example, like you go into the shadow of Pisces, okay? You can go overly into the crown chakra, overactive crown. You can struggle with boundaries. You could be too much of a dreamer, like not really grounded in the physical plane. You could be, you know, fantasizing all the time. And especially because it's in the second house, it could be about money. Like you might not have a grasp, okay, when it comes to finances because you could be too much in the crown chakra, overactive crown, you know, constantly like daydreaming and dreaming about this. But the trick with Pisces, Neptune, you know, 12th house energy is you want to ground it, okay? You want to figure out how can you ground this energy down here in this physical plane and in this physical reality, okay? You said Neptune in the 8th house, late mother, hid spiritual gifts. You said you think she could predict things, including her death, her own death. Oh, that's interesting. Neptune in the 8th house. Neptune in the 8th, I mean, you yourself could be a medium. I'm curious to know more so what's going on with the moon for you. Do you have moon to Neptune aspect taking place? I'm curious to know. Saturn in Aquarius in the second house, you got restricted in the area of expressing your ideas, basically, and money. So Saturn in the second house, you either incarnate into having money or you don't have it. It's karmic, okay? Your relationship with money, and that's connected to the father. So to clear this, you have to go back and explore what is the father's relationship with money, okay? You said you have Capricorn and Cancer intercepted. Can you tell me in what houses are they intercepted, okay? You said you have midheaven, square Lilith, square the moon, Lilith trine Mercury, Lilith square Pluto, Lilith trine Chiron. A lot to do with getting in tune with your dark side, okay, is really what's going on here. And I feel like potentially maybe, again, doing the shadow work or something of that sort will bring you money because it's squaring the midheaven. But at the same time, there's an energy here of if you don't do the shadow work, it directly impacts your career because it's the square, okay? So that's something that you're meant to overcome. You said, how serious should I take my Scorpio and 8th house videos when you have 8th house Mercury and Pluto and Scorpio in the 8th house? You want to know which videos to watch for strengthening your central energy for manifesting. I mean, anytime you have personal placements in the 8th house, that's going to probably resonate with you. So Mercury in the 8th, like you're psychic and you're a medium. Pluto in the 8th too, because the house affects you more. Pluto and Scorpio is the overall generation. So that kind of, you know, you're a part of the generation, but it's not like that's going to be at the forefront for anyone who has, let's say, the generational planets in Scorpio, okay? You want to look at the personal planets in Scorpio and then the personal, again, planets in the 8th house, or if you have, let's say, Scorpio rising, or again, if you have the 8th house, let's say Uranus in the 8th, Neptune in the 8th, and then Pluto in the 8th house, okay? So yeah, in terms of manifesting, like, and your sexual energy, like really what it comes down to is trying to contain your energy for the self to bring through what it is that you are trying to bring through, okay? Because look at it this way, the sexual energy brings through life, right? So it's connected to the spiritual side, it's connected to the other side. So it's like if you're able to contain and retain that energy and then put it toward, okay, what it is that you're trying to manifest, you will probably bring that thing towards you faster, okay? If you get distracted by people around you, and I'm not saying anything, you guys have the free will to do what you want. This is just how manifestation actually works, okay? Versus when people just try to tell you, like, visualize it all the time and like write it on a paper, put it under your pillow, like, that can have some truth to it, but if you want to actually learn how to properly manifest, you have to elevate your own energy, and you can't be energetically enmeshed with too many people around you. You even have this, for example, with athletes, for example, like, you know, you can have partners and so on and so forth. I'm not saying anything, you know, that you can't. It's just like, even athletes, let's say they do have a partner, a lot of the time they're retaining their sexual energy so they can put it into their performance, okay, in terms of whatever it is that they're doing in athletics, whether they're boxing, whether they are a soccer player or whatever, right? So, you know, it's all about containing the energy and then releasing it toward what it is that you're trying to create, right? Because it's also creative energy. So a lot of people's sexual energy goes to waste, unfortunately, because what people don't realize is that anytime you get to that heightened point, and if you're new here, I call this the heightened point, okay? So the CLIMAX, okay? You're opening up your energy field. And actually, I was telling you guys this in my head earlier today, or even actually last night. It could have been last night. I was explaining to you guys in my head, okay? You know, I was basically saying, and it's interesting that it's coming up now, but I was basically saying that, like, for people who are unable to get to the heightened point with another individual, sometimes that's actually your body's way of protecting you. And I've said this previously in like my previous lives as well, but sometimes it's your body's way of protecting you from that person and whatever's going on within them energetically. Because when you get to the heightened point, you open up the energy. And that's why some people are obsessed with sexual activity, because it's like, for some people, it's the closest they're going to get to quote unquote enlightenment, okay? Is really, really what it is. So it's a matter of learning how to kind of harness the energy for yourself so you can then release it toward whatever it is that you were trying to bring through. So sometimes if you're not able to get to that heightened point with another individual, the whole thing that's happening here is that actually your body's way of protecting you from whatever's going on within them so you don't merge to them, okay? I mean, being around them, you could already merge to them, okay? Especially if you're watery, like just by being within their vicinity. But really, if you get to that heightened point, you're opening your energy field. So you're now gonna basically take on whatever's going on with the other person, okay? So sometimes that's your body's way of protecting you from whatever's going on with them, okay? And also you guys can sometimes explore this like within yourselves too. I mean, I don't know, this isn't, if you're under 18, leave now. But anyways, if you, I gave you guys the time, okay, to exit the chat. But you know, if you're trying to see like what's going on between you and another person and you haven't gotten to that point with them yet, for example, like let's say physically engaging with them, you can explore within yourself to see if your body will be able to go there within your own imagination with that person, for example. And if you're not able to get there, that's again your body's way of telling you not to engage with this person. Like, you have to be so in tune with your body. I hope that that makes sense, okay? So it's this, but it's like most people have a hard time of going within their imagination because they're distracted by things that they see online, okay? And that's why that's also detrimental, because that's why sometimes people struggle in the bedroom, for example, if they spend too much time, you know, connecting their energy to things that they see visually. I really, really hope that makes sense. I'm kind of trying to speak between the lines here. I mean, that's one of the issues. The other issue is, I spoke about this on one of my previous lives too, is again, some people get to the heightened point and, you know, the mind doesn't know the difference sometimes between a person that's in front of them and what they're seeing on a screen, right? So it's like, for people who get to the heightened point and they're watching something, it's like you are now opening your vessel to take on whatever is going on in the, you know, on the screen or like within those people, right? So the struggle with that is like, it then affects you energetically because there's a lot of dark magic that's incorporated to these things, okay, that people watch online. I'm kind of speaking between the lines here. So people don't know what's going on, and it's like, because there's dark magic incorporated in there, again, people quote unquote try to get to that heightened point without realizing, like, they could be unaware of this, but they're actually taking on and absorbing this dark energy and it's affecting them. So that's my tangent about all of that, okay? Yeah, exactly, Infinite Zebra. It's because when the chat is vertical, anybody can join in, okay? When it's horizontal, it's just you guys. So it's so interesting because I was just thinking, I was like, should I go horizontal? But I just stayed vertical, so it's fine. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? You said how to deal with low self-esteem and confidence with Saturn and Leo in the 4th house. The whole thing here is it's connected to the father. I think it's the time of day, Melissa. I think it's just, I mean, I'm not going to get into what I actually think that it is. I'm just going to send out telepathic vibes as to what's actually happening here energetically. all that I can say is the higher up you go in frequency, there's more people that get energetically sent your way. And this is a perfect example of what happens. Do you know what I mean? Because they're just basically being sent your way to try to throw you off energetically. Like, here you go. You guys have the perfect example in real time of how the more you come into your truth, the more you come into your alignment, the more you speak these things, you get energetically, basically, you know, people sent your way to throw you off. That's why, like, I basically pay no mind. I just continue on with my way or whatever I was saying. So back to the how to deal with self-esteem and confidence with the Saturn and Leo and in the 4th house. Okay. So the issue with the confidence and the self-esteem comes from the father. Okay. So the father restricted you. I find, and this is just my own opinion, but I find that the Leo energy struggles the most. Okay. When it comes to the self-esteem, okay, which is really interesting because it's like Taurus deals with self-esteem and they can struggle as well, but I find Leo struggles with it the most, and it's usually connected to the father overall because Leo is ruled by the sun, okay, but now you have Saturn in Leo, so now it's like it's connected to the father because he literally restricted you in terms of your creativity. So anytime you guys have any issues with self-esteem or confidence, the only thing that I can really say, and obviously you guys have the free will to do what you want, but the only way you guys can try to quote unquote improve this for yourselves is by completing things, okay? Or like, for example, you know, putting yourselves in certain situations that maybe you guys fear. So for example, whether it's public speaking and then you guys will gain confidence from, you know, conquering that fear, or whether you guys really wanted to start a project and then you have a positive outcome, or whether you guys go to the gym and then you have a certain, like, you know, fitness goal. Like, you guys have to put yourselves in these situations and you have to do it for yourselves where you guys are winning at something, and start small, for example, right? You are probably going to feel better about yourselves if you guys give yourselves like the small, you know, goals, and then eventually you want to get to the big goals. So one way you guys can do this is you guys can see what is the overall big goal, and you guys can work backwards, okay, to see, you know, maybe what you have to do weekly and so on and so forth to, you know, gain these things. But that's basically like the way that you can gain confidence. The way that I see it is like, you have to put yourself in these situations. You have to know yourself, like, you know, what are certain things that kind of give you anxieties? Like, is it going to an event by yourself? Is it, you know, eating dinner out by yourself? And, you know, you have to actually put yourself in that situation is really what it is. You have to push through, put yourself in that situation, and then when you overcome it, you will build the confidence, okay? And with the Leo energy, there's something here where you want to be seen, you want to be on that stage. So it's like maybe taking an improv class, maybe taking a public speaking class, maybe taking, you know, an acting class, like something where you're forced to come out of your comfort zone, because the ego is always going to come up with excuses. You know what I mean? The ego is going to be like, oh, it's raining today. Oh, I can't go because it's Mercury retrograde. Do you know what I mean? That's why I try to stay away from the transits too. Or the ego is going to be like, oh, you know, you're so cozy at home, just watch TV, you can do it tomorrow, all these types of things, okay? But you have to learn to push through. Like, you still want to, like, you're still going to have the ego, but you have to learn how to silence it versus your intuition. You have to get in tune with your intuition. Obviously, sometimes it's your intuition that's telling you don't go to a certain thing, and you'll know that when you operate out of the heart space, that it's like an actual warning sign, but sometimes it's your ego trying to keep you feeling safe and small, okay? And that's the struggle down here on this earth plane, because for you to come into your full self-alignment and for you to come into your truth, you have to break free from a lot of the energy, quote unquote, programming is the first thing, but you also have to pick yourself. And that's the struggle, especially like for people who are programmed to choose others a lot of the time, okay? And then you have that 4th house energy in there, so maybe it's coming from the home. So it's this. Oh, you said father is absent and irresponsible. There it is. You guys can also like the live by double tapping on the screen. Thanks so much for the likes, you guys. Make sure if you guys want to like the live, double tap on the screen. And for the people who are watching the live replay, you can just click live, okay? Or click like, I mean. Oh my gosh, ask the 4, how are you doing? Chiron conjunct ascendant. That is the wound around the self, okay? So there's a wound here. I'm curious to know what sign it's in. But there's a wound here to fully express the self, okay? To fully be yourself, okay? Because it's the ascendant. Maybe even with starting something, you know, going after things. But that's what the wound is connected to, okay? You're welcome. I'm sure you can watch it in the live replay. Infinite Zebra. You said if someone is energetically sensitive, is it okay to go through life like not protecting yourself energetically? No, you want to protect yourself energetically. When you're energetically sensitive, okay, you pick up on energies around you, and the struggle is because you merge to energies around you. So that's going to be sometimes the place that you're living, sometimes it's going to be your partner, sometimes it's going to be your friends, and all of these things, okay? You know, you pick up on these energies, and it's like if you're open, you're merging to them. And the struggle is you start merging and then you start purging for them. You like internalize their things as if they're your own, okay? So for some people, this is going to be called like a heightened empath, basically. It's just so unfortunate because the internet butchers like everything. Like they butchered the term empath, you know, but it's like basically an empath is a person who is here to transmute energy essentially through their vessel. So what they do is they merge, okay? And then you have different types of empaths. Like you have people who are clairsentient who are doing this, but an empath specifically goes into dark situations, okay? Whether they're aware of it or not. Sometimes you walk through, you know, let's say a store, there had just been a fight or something on that sort. So your energy field has to be strong to be able to transmute this, okay? Otherwise, the energy kind of starts to collapse in on itself because you start to internalize it as if it's your own. This is why you have to spend a lot of time learning the self first, clearing the lower 3 chakras and developing a strong solar plexus so you can know who you truly are, so you can differentiate your energy from another person's, okay? Is really what it is. So if you don't protect yourself, for example, like let's say you're wilding out and let's say you're partying all the time and you're drinking all the time, you're doing all these substances, which is fine. Like everyone goes through phases in life, like it's okay. But it's like, basically that's detrimental energetically because it's like you are absorbing things more. So when you do these things, you absorb more because you already absorb things. I hope that makes sense, okay? So you want to focus on closing the energetic vessel versus keeping it open. If you open it up even more, like first of all, you're already a little bit out of body, right? So it's like you want to focus on grounding, coming more into the person versus opening up the energy field, okay? I really, really hope that makes sense, like more, okay? So by doing substances, not sleeping properly, being stressed all the time, and this is what I mean, sometimes people get sent your way that push you into this energy, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's a partner and that partner keeps you anxious all the time or stressed, and that's now opening up your energy field and it's lowering your vibration, and this is how people then develop like illnesses, allegedly, my opinion. I'm not a medical practitioner, but everything originates in the spiritual realm first, okay? So you must, okay, obviously have the free will to do what you want, but you have to figure out a way to protect yourself energetically, okay? Whether that is going to the gym. The best things to do, and these are just my own opinions, okay? But the best things to do are going to the gym, exercise, walking, okay? Swimming, like these types of things, okay? Anything that gets the body moving, because then you'll purge the energy out of your body, okay? Because you'll get the energy moving. That will help. Salt baths will help always. But usually I find the best thing is like movement, okay? Because that kind of really like almost like accelerates, you know, like purging energetically. And you might notice, let's say you go to a gym class, let's say you go to a yoga class, let's say anything of the sort, you know, anytime you move your body, the stuck energy comes to the surface. So you might be purging for the next few days, for example, like whether you're raging and you're angry or you're upset or whatever, but you have to go through feeling the motions because you're clearing the energy out of your body, okay? So I feel like that's the best thing to do, okay? Any form of exercise to purge, but you can of course do other things too, like any sort of like ritual for yourself. So like I mentioned, like it could be a salt bath, for example, you know, self-care types of things and routines, and just like, you know, like doing things that you love to elevate your frequency is really what it is. Being around people, okay, also is going to help. Okay, now that's, you guys have to take that with a grain of salt because sometimes that can be draining too. But it has to be people that you love, you know what I mean? Where you guys are like doing fun things and maybe, you know, you guys are laughing and these types of things, okay? You know what I mean? Like people that you love that are kind of maybe on your same vibe and frequency too, okay? That will elevate your frequency. And then trying to monitor, okay? Like how much caffeine do you take, okay? Because that also affects your sleep, okay? And then what else? Like just like healthy living, eating healthily, and all of these things. Recently, you guys, I was actually thinking about this because this has been my most recent discovery. I've noticed what a dark energy fast food has connected to it. It's not just the food, like it could be the quality of food, but there's something else. Like I'm like, are these people doing magic with this food? Just allegedly, my own opinion. Because you guys, it wasn't like this before, okay? But I'm noticing it now more than ever. Like I'm talking about like fast food. You know what I mean? Like some places, like, you know, when you eat out, it can be maybe a little bit better energetically. You guys have to do this exploration for yourselves because this is just something that I noticed. But it's like there's something with the food, or just like either the way that they make it, or are they infusing things into the food? Like it just like really opens you up like energetically and kind of also lowers your frequency down, okay? Yeah, exactly. Sage, exactly. You know, certain herbs that you guys, you know, can use to cleanse the space. The thing is with sage, what I heard recently, and this is the thing with the internet, you always hear different information or pieces of information, because recently I heard that sage can bring in good and bad energies too. So sometimes you want to pair sage with like another herb or whatever. But it's like, honestly, like you guys need to do the exploration for yourselves to see what is going to work for you, okay? Because like, for example, I do frankincense to at least once a week, okay, to cleanse the energy. And then I just do different like cleansing things like every single day is really what it is, to just like cleanse the energy. And honestly, at the end of the day, you could also do prayer or just like, if you believe in God or the source or the creator, like that can also assist you as well. So different people have different things. Because like I had a friend who did Reiki back in the day, and the friend would like Reiki the room. Okay, so it's like intention. Do you know what I mean? Like the person was going around like cleansing the energy, basically using their own vessel with like, again, combined with like Reiki and I guess the symbols in Reiki, but that's how they would cleanse the space. So there's different things that people do. You know what I mean? But it's really this. Yes, Inspired Soul, I did answer your question. So you can find that in the live replay. It was a little bit ago, okay? Yeah, caffeine affects your breathing. Basically what happens with the caffeine, what I've noticed is like, if you drink too much coffee, and this just, again, from my own experience, because I used to drink like 3 large coffees a day, basically what it does is like it puts you into overdrive, and that's the issue with a lot of the food. What they're doing with the food also, and this is just my own opinion allegedly, but they're adding a lot of sugar into the food, and I've just observed that by traveling to like other places where a lot of the preservatives and additives are banned. Okay, I've just observed that. Or just like also places that I've traveled to where like the food is like maybe like more locally grown, like you can really sense the difference. And it's just unfortunate because of the way they made the lifestyle to be fast, so you don't have time to cook sometimes, and then you eat out. Or in general, like eating out is like a social activity, you go with your friends and so on and so forth. But the issue with a lot of the quote unquote fast food or even processed food, in there they have sugar. There's some kind of sugar that they're putting in there that's maybe not real sugar, or like an additive or something of that sort, that gets you energetically like hyperactive, okay? And then it affects you because, or like the food itself, when it breaks down in your body, turns into the sugar. I can't like, I'm not, again, like a dietitian or anything of that sort. This is just my own observation. So those are always my disclaimers, and I observe it through my own body of how it makes me feel comparing it to other things, okay? Caffeine. I used to drink 3 large coffees a day, and then I had to wean myself off, and it was such an interesting process because in weaning myself off of caffeine, like I had such intense headaches. I was so foggy, but I was pushing through. I just drink like basically an espresso in the morning, like just a little bit. And I look at that as grounding energetically, okay? But it's interesting because even one time when I did a cleanse and I didn't have that little bit of coffee in the morning, like that threw me off for the entire day. Like in that whole cleanse, I noticed that like not having that little bit like basically like played the largest role in the cleanse. Like it's so hard to explain, but anyways, it is what it is. It's an airplane at the end of the day, you know what I mean? You can't restrict everything. So have a little bit of coffee in the day, in the beginning of the day, okay? But everything in moderation, you guys, because it's like if you drink too much coffee, then it's like it's just caffeine like going through your bloodstream, and then it affects your sleep. I hope that makes sense. And it's interesting that one of you guys talked about how it affects your breathing, because that's probably bringing in like anxiety energy, or it's making you too hyper, or something of that sort is taking place. So it could be that, and then also it affects your sleep. Like that was what I noticed the most, and that was what was kind of like my incentive to fully stop drinking, because when I did that initial like weaning off the coffee phase, what I noticed was that I was actually going into deep sleep and I was dreaming again, okay? And that was when I realized, and again, this is just my own observation, I'm not a scientist or anything of that sort, but my own observation, I noticed that I wasn't, while I was drinking the intense coffee, like 3 coffees a day, I wasn't going into the REM, like deep sleep. So then your body's always tired. So when you kind of purge out the coffee, what you'll notice is that you go through this like exhaust energy, because, okay, the whole thing is like, if you depend on these substances, let's say for your life force energy, it's like, it's too much. I hope that makes sense, right? So it puts your body into overdrive. So you kind of have to get to the point where you get to your natural rhythm, is really what it is. And if you're tired, you have to listen to that. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, again, you know, if you're depending on coffee or caffeine for life force energy, you're probably pushing yourself too far. So that's what I noticed. I noticed that I was like very tired energetically, because again, you know, you're not fully sleeping, so you're not getting like that regeneration process. And again, that's just like my own observation, okay? You said, why would someone develop psychosis and no substances? You said modern psychiatry gives out fast pills. Yeah, it's those, okay? Allegedly, my opinion. I know that's like a huge industry and it's just my opinion, but those also energetically open you up as well, okay? Any sort of like pharmaceutical types of things, allegedly, my opinion, is a form of drug, and that also energetically opens you up, because you guys have to understand that every substance, it's almost like it has its own like spirit in one way, shape, or form. Does that make sense? It has like its own entities that are connected to it. So for example, the best way I can explain this is, have you guys ever heard of like the Hat Man or whatever? So people on like the Clock app would talk about when they take Benadryl, how like a lot of them owe the Hat Man money. So I guess this Hat Man is connected to Benadryl, okay, or whatever. That's like the spirit that's connected to the Benadryl. And the struggle with a lot of the synthetics is that basically it's like dark entities is really what it is. Like it's fake energy. Does that make sense? So then it energetically opens you up, okay? Is really, really what it is. So that's the struggle, because people don't know that, right? So it's just like, I find it interesting that you know, I understand sometimes you're in a situation and you have to take certain, certain substances, right? Like it just is what it is. Sometimes people go for a surgery, whatever, right? I'm just talking about like over a prolonged period of time, because that's also my opinion on like birth control pills. Allegedly, my own opinion, I'm gonna call that BCP. I'm gonna have to go on that rant some other day, because that affects the whole feminine like energy system. Because basically what it does, what I've noticed too, is that it suppresses, okay, the actual like intuitive almost aspect of the feminine. Like there's something going on with that too. But anyways, that's gonna have to be a different video for a different day. But yeah, so any sort of pharmaceutical thing, I find that if it's like over a prolonged extended period of time, it like opens you up, you know what I mean, energetically. So that's the struggle. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. It's smart not to take anything, because sometimes then people get dependent on that. Because the thing is, like, unfortunately, allegedly, my own opinion, like these industries don't assist people in getting to the root of the problem. What they do is they put a band-aid solution on things, right? So it's like, let's say someone is struggling with something, you have to get to the root of the issue. Like, why are you struggling with that thing? Like, where is that energy coming from? Do you know what I mean? And it's unfortunate, because it's like, and this is a struggle, because the whole feminine intuitive aspect out of all of these practices has been taken out. You know what I mean? So it's like, even when you go to a person, let's say for assistance, like they might be robotic, you know what I mean? Or they might, again, prescribe you something, or they'll be like, it's this, so here is this band-aid solution. But those are all band-aid solutions. And that's why it's unfortunate, because then people don't get to the root of the actual issue. But like, for you to get to the root of the actual issue, like, first of all, everyone would have to be more evolved, and you'd actually have to spend a lot of time with a practitioner. But it's just like when it's capitalism, everyone's trying to be like, boom, 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 next, like more money, like swipe the card, you know what I mean? So that's the struggle, because it's like, again, instead of assisting people to get to the root of their actual issues, they're just kind of trying to give the quick fix, okay? Is really what it is. And that can assist people for a short period of time, but then you will also eventually get back to the same issue. Does that make sense? Like, and then people might like look for stronger things, but it's like, it's a different type of escapism. I hope that makes sense without even realizing. Like, there's actual substance abuse, which are just like drugs that people find out on the street, but then there's other types of substances, which is this whole industry. I'm not going to mention it again, that I was just speaking on, allegedly my own opinion, that just gives band-aid solutions so people don't get to the root of their problem. And it's just like, you have to get to the root of the issue, because you have to go in to transmute the energy. I hope that makes sense, is really what it is. And then create almost like new thought patterns and energetic loops. But it's a struggle, because you have to understand, okay, what is even going on. And it's sometimes like you have to unweave the web, okay? You said when you were on antidepressant for a short time in your 20s, you couldn't feel energy anymore. Exactly. You said it made you feel dead. It took a while for the energy to feel energy again. Exactly. That's the thing. Okay. Do you see what it does? And a lot of these things, like, in a one way, shape, or form, like numb people. And again, it disconnects you from your heart space and the feeling aspect of things. So it's like, this is the unfortunate aspect of the time that we're currently living in. This is the extreme shadow masculine manifestation in the material, okay? Because it's like, it fully strips people from the intuition. First of all, it strips you from the feeling aspect of things. And, the feeling aspect of things, like, that's your internal compass to operate down here, is really what it is. And I made a video on this so many years ago. Well, not so many years ago, maybe so many months ago. The time goes by so fast, you guys. So maybe it was a year or two ago now at this point. But anyways, it was called, and it's under my metaphysical playlist, it was called Your Connection, Your Feelings Are Your Connection to God, Source, and the Creator, which is what it is, right? So it's this. Oh, have I? As before, that's good. You said, do I think tattoos have energies, imprints from the artist, relationship to the artist? That's an interesting question, relationship to the artist. I mean, I find that any sort of art that people do, like, let's say, okay, here's the thing. If you go to a tattoo artist and, you find like something like, you want them to write something, or you want it to be like something like a heart or whatever, butterfly, like, you know what I mean? Like these like overall things, like, I don't think that's going to have any effect really from the person, right? But I mean, everything is energy transference at the end of the day. So I haven't thought about that. But what I have thought about before is that in general, like when people create art, they put a lot of their own energy into the art that they're creating. So I've noticed a lot of the time, like, a lot of art pieces kind of look sometimes demonic to me, or like dark, because it's almost like the person's like demons are coming out through their art. Now, obviously it's not going to be everybody, right? But that's the thing. So it's like, anytime you're engaging in anything, whether it's music or whatever, you're still going to absorb some of the other person's energy, right? So you have to make sure and see, where is that person at energetically, okay? You said you tried getting off anxiety meds and you started having panic attacks again. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, you have to figure out like what is the root of the anxiety is really what it is. Like, are you picking up on energies? I'm not sure if you're the same person who asked me about being energetically sensitive is really what it is. Because sometimes, okay, here's the thing with anxiety, and this is just my own observation. Again, you guys, I'm not a psychologist, medical practitioner, like that's all there. Those are my disclaimers. But with anxiety, I find it can be multiple things. It can be either you're actually like anxious because you're waiting for something, like that puts you into a feeling of anxiety, right? So you're waiting for an answer, you're waiting for a response, you're waiting for whatever, okay? Like you're in a waiting energy, so that can give you anxiety, okay? Sometimes anxiety can come from just like where you're operating at in terms of your chakras. Like overall, it could be this. So it's like you could be just like fear-based overall. So you'd have to get to the root of that and be like, okay, what is the fear here in general, like that you're operating out of? So that could be the anxiety. Other times the anxiety could be coming from the external people, okay? So you could be energetically open and you could be picking up on their vibes. But the only way for you to know this is to know yourself. Do you know what I mean? And to know your own energy first. So I really, really hope that that makes sense, okay? Capitalism and having to work made you not be able to get to the root of the problem. And that's the thing. And I said that in one of my recent, oh, again, it's not recent. This was probably a few years ago now. And I can't remember which video this was, but it was a while back, okay? Because I remember where I was when I was filming it. But anyways, I said in one of my videos, the biggest blessing you can have in this life, like the biggest privilege is time, okay? Because most people are working and then they don't have the time to sit with themselves, to be with themselves, you know, to like clear all these things. And that's all done by design too, okay? That's all done by design too. Oh, good. You said North Node and Sun conjunction meaning so the father plays a role in your life purpose, North Node and Sun, your ego, your identity is connected to the life purpose, your solar plexus, like developing all these things, like developing the sense of self, having the strong sense of self is going to then be connected to your life purpose, okay? Your ego, your identity. So that's basically going to trigger you. Sometimes even like masculines in your life could assist you with your life purpose, okay? With that energy. You say you feel so blocked in your 10th house in Leo somehow. Neptune and Uranus in the 4th. Neptune and Uranus in the 4th ruled by Saturn. Okay, you guys, to get to your 10th, you have to clear the 4th, okay? Which is so interesting because I'm always talking about how, again, I'm not a psychologist, but everything does root from the home, okay? And the original two caregivers. I actually have a video on here called... the importance of the 4th house, okay? Because for you to get to your 10th, you have to clear the 4th. So now you have Neptune and Uranus in there and it's ruled by Saturn. It's like a lot of things could have been going on in the home, okay? For example, Uranus, maybe you moved around a lot. Maybe there was instability. Maybe the mother was unstable. Neptune, you don't see the home clearly. The parents could have been escapists. Like all of this has to be integrated to activate that 10th house, okay? And also, the closer you get to the maturity of the 10th, which is Saturn, so age 35, it gets basically energetically more clear. I hope that that makes sense, okay? But it doesn't just happen when you turn 35, right? You have to actually do the work to get there. I hope that that makes sense, okay? Because Saturn either rewards you or it catches up with you because it's quote-unquote karma down here on this earth plane. I hope that that makes sense, okay? I do birth chart readings. I do natal chart readings, synastry readings, progressed natal chart readings. I do mini natal chart readings, mini synastry readings. You can find all of that either in the description box below, or if you can't open that right now during the live, you can go on my About Me tab, okay? You said to clear the 4th, if your 4th house ruler is placed in the 10th, any thoughts? Something to do with the father here. Maybe he was kind of like the predominance in the home for you. Saturn, okay, I'm going back up, you guys. I'll get to you guys at the bottom in just a second. You said Saturn in Libra. 1 second. Okay, guys, I am back. Okay, so Saturn in Libra in the 6th house, does this mean open enemies? I always look at enemies in the 12th. I know people talk about the 6th house being enemies as well. You said weight loss, struggle, and burnout. Will it ever go away? You get restricted in the area of health. Yes, with Saturn in the 6th house. I'm trying to think because you have Saturn in Libra. You could have been restricted in the area of friends actually by the father or like the dominant masculine role in your life. Teachers, managers. Those people restrict you. Basically. And you said weight loss, struggle, and burnout. Will it go away? I'm trying to think here because the 6th house can go into like trying to tend to everyone's cup first and not filling up their own cup. So there's something here of like you not filling your own cup, like trying to figure out what can you do for self-care. I hope that makes sense. Like, you know, is it taking a bath? Is it going for a walk? You know what I mean? Like something where you're not tending to everyone because I feel like you're being energetically kind of spread all over the place. And then the weight loss struggle is probably the weight of the people around you, okay? There's something going on here where you energetically kind of consume like the dark energy of the people around you, or like their stress. Something of that sort is going on here. And then it's like, it's not even your own stuff, but because you energetically take it on, it's weight, right? So that's another thing too, you guys, like weight. You'll see this a lot of the time with people who are healers or empaths or people who are energetically sensitive. Like they tend to hold weight, okay, on their body. And weight, what is it? Okay, and again, I'm not a medical practitioner. If you're just tuning in now, that's my disclaimer. But the way that I see it, like psychically, is like you're holding on to something and potentially that's not yours, okay? That's first of all. The other thing that I've noticed too for people, sometimes if they struggle with weight, like let's say they're actually overweight, okay? Because there's different types of weight, but people who are like overweight, I find with them, for them, a lot of the time, there's something going on with like where they were bullied or abused when they were younger. And it's just so unfortunate because a lot of the time those people are like the sweetest souls ever, but it's like, it kind of becomes this like energetic armor for them. So you'd have to get to the root of that. This is what I mean. You guys always have to get to the root of the issue to transmute the energy, because sometimes people lose all the weight, but then they gain it back, right? Because they haven't gone to the root of the issue. Like the people around them could still be these like bully, abusive types of people. So that could be another way the energy manifests. But sometimes it's like you have absorbed things that aren't yours. So this is why, like, if you guys are in any sort of healing profession, or maybe you're watery, or maybe you just absorb people's energy like very easily, you have to have some sort of routine, like in terms of like going to the gym, exercise, walking, like to clear the energy out of the vessel, right? It doesn't always have to be like just like in terms of like how you look in the physical. It can also be like an energetic thing too, right? Where it's like you've absorbed a lot. So you need to like basically get the energy going. Because sometimes also what happens with people and weight too, if you're someone who's more in the feminine, another thing that can happen to you, because this came through psychically once when I met these people, okay? But anyways, it's like sometimes it's like the hormones are off, and the hormones can be off because of the fact that you might not feel safe. This is like different ways that this energy can manifest. So you guys can take it as it resonates, but it could also manifest in the way where it's like you don't feel safe, or like the cortisol level is high. So maybe it's like the partner or the people around you or the people you live with, like they keep you like energetically like on edge, okay? And then that could also like mess up the hormones, and then that could also kind of put weight on, which is interesting because then that weight could also be the protection. Do you see how it's all connected? So it's this. You said you're an overgiver. Well, there you go. Unfortunately, yes. Try to see how you can kind of pull the energy back and see why are you an overgiver, because that's the struggle sometimes with the 6th house. So anytime you guys go into an excess of something, it's usually like rooting from you getting validation from doing that thing, okay? So from a young age, you probably learned, and I'm not a psychologist, just an observation again, but from a young age, you probably learned that, you know, you get the applause or the recognition, or it comes from the parents or the family, like whoever, because it's Saturn, it could have been the father maybe. But anyways, like, you know, it comes from someone where you get the recognition for extending yourself, right? Or overextending yourself. And then you get the validation, and then that kind of becomes a core part of your personality. So that's why it's a struggle, because you really, like this for everybody, like you always have to go through the self-exploration journey. And this, sometimes you guys can find it in the 2nd house too, energetically, to see like, what do you guys get your self-worth from? Because a lot of the time people are pulling their self-worth from external things, or like doing things. Does that make sense? So, and then like that then becomes like the part of the ego, which is the identity, which is the solar plexus. And it's like, it might not be who you actually are, is just like a survival thing. So you guys, everything like roots in survival, okay? So anytime anyone behaves in any type of way, it's actually coming from like them learning to survive by doing that thing. Does that make sense? So it's this. So it's like sometimes you have to go into the energy to like break that loop that has been created. And this is for any sort of loop that gets created, right? To actually get to like the truth of the soul, right? Because when you get closer to the soul self, you don't put your energy on other people, on other things that are outside of you, things that are external to you, okay? And this is how sometimes people even have anxiety, let's say in relationships. It's sometimes connected for them like with a fear of loss or abandonment, or something of that sort, because the identity is created through the other person. Does that make sense? I really, really hope that makes sense, you guys, okay? You're welcome. I'm glad that you're able to be here. Yes, I'm doing an earlier live for you guys. You said, hey, Nate, how are you? You're a healer empath. That's what it is. So you're absorbing a lot of it's excess energy that you're absorbing. So you have to figure out how to clear it, okay, is really what it is. Sometimes, you know, like, again, anyone who is in the healing world, like you want to give, right, is really what it is. But it's like, that's also how the burnout happens, because, you know, there might not be an equal energy exchange, but also if you are okay with, you know, willingly giving, you still have to figure out how to clear the energy out of your body, because your body is being used as the vessel to transmute, right? So that's what weight is. You've absorbed stuff that's not yours, essentially, okay? So you have to like purge it out. And sometimes it's a belief system that's not yours. Sometimes, you know, like, because a lot of these energies get passed down through families, okay? It goes from the father, you know, sometimes to the kid or the mother, and that's coming from the grandma or the grandpa or whatever, okay? So I'm sure you guys get the idea here, okay? Let's see. You said you've been thinking about ego death / ego disillusionment about and how any loss we face, especially the loss of the relationship, breakup, death, it is. Anytime you guys go through an ending, okay? So it could be a relationship, it could be, you know, you move to a different place, it could be a job, it could be a belief system. Those are the hardest ones because it's kind of hard to pinpoint. You know, let's say you thought something was one way, but it's not, right? Or you found out that it's a scam, right? You have to go through the grieving process. And that's the struggle down here on this earth plane, okay? Because the way that people are programmed from a young age actually does a disservice to them. And then again, that's why people are disconnected from the soul self, okay? Is really what it is. I'll go back up and see what you guys were saying up there. You said, what's been on my mind metaphysically recently? Oh my gosh, Nate, I always think of it because now I think of you. So I think of it in the moment and I'm like, okay, this is what I've been thinking about. And then now I can't remember it, but I'll try to see if I can remember what has been on my mind. Okay, B, let me see what you were saying. Hey, B, how are you doing? You said, is this a Saturn in video? I love these. No, this is just like a general astrology, like question and answer, metaphysical, whatever you guys want to talk about. You said, does Saturn in Aquarius with Uranus, Capricorn, Sun, 11th house, deal more with identity or worth? What is the karma tied to this? So you have Saturn in Aquarius in the 12th. You have Uranus in Capricorn. Uranus in Capricorn is generational. And then Sun, 11th. Okay, so is the Sun in Capricorn in the 11th house too, with Uranus in the 11th house as well? Because none of that's really dealing with the identity here. Although in terms of worth, maybe you find your worth through 11th house types of things. Since you're asking for your worth, you guys can look at the second house and the sign in the second house, and sometimes the second house ruler as well. You're welcome. Let's see. You said luminaries are Sun in Capricorn, Scorpio moon, 8th, Pisces rising. Oh, that's intense. But that's also a boss, okay? When I see Capricorn, Scorpio, that's someone who wants to hustle. It's the Pisces rising that might throw you off. Because again, Pisces rising people project onto you, okay? They project a dream onto you. So you might unconsciously play into what it is that they want for you, okay? You said, how did I personally elevate my level of consciousness? You never hear me mentioning meditation, so you wonder what else can be done to be so highly tuned. Oh, thank you so much for the kind words. So that's so interesting because I was just thinking about that in my mind the other day. And I just recently was like, let me meditate because I don't really meditate anymore. So it's so interesting that you asked that because the way that I see it is like, first of all, everyone's vessel is going to be different, right? So it depends on you and it depends, are you operating more out of the masculine or out of the feminine energy, right? That's the same thing with like ego deaths because a lot of even like new age concepts are connected to the shadow masculine energy. Like the shadow masculine has to go through the ego death because they have to get in tune with the feminine energy within, right? So it depends. I mean, everyone has these energies within them, feminine, masculine. Like you're always gonna have to go through an ego death, okay? And like different things are gonna serve you at different points in your journey. Like there was definitely a lot of time where I did used to meditate. And like, it's so interesting you asked me that because literally the other day when I actually was like, okay, let me meditate, I was thinking in my mind and I was thinking about how back in the day, it used to be me and one of my friends. So, okay, guys, I used to do Reiki, but then I would do like distance Reiki where I would like basically go psychically into the astral, like during like meditating, right? And then I would like see what's going on. And then me and my friend would do it together, basically to like strengthen the energy to like basically like give certain individuals like answers like as to what was like going on. And that was like way back. But anyways, I don't do that anymore because it's like, that's just been the gradual process, I guess, of the journey. Like I don't do Reiki, I don't do distant Reiki or anything of that sort. But at the same time, like you get to a certain point of psychic evolution where you know how to catch the energy. Like I feel all of these things are like tools to try to get to that point. Like meditation is trying to teach you how to get into that state. I guess it's the theta state. I'm not sure about the science terms. You guys can Google that if you guys are interested to see the exact term. But it's like, it's that state like right before you fall asleep, right? That helps you get into that state. That's what meditation is, right? It helps you get into that state so you can get the information. But it's like, because I do psychic work and because I know how to basically go into that energy, it's like I'm basically always in that energy. Does that make sense? Like, for example, for me, it's like my meditation, if I were to put a meditation label on it, would be walking. Like I love to walk. That's also how I cleanse my energy as well. I go out in nature a lot of the time. Like for me, like a lot, and that's why I give you guys the example of like going to the gym. Like I love going to the gym too, but my number one favorite thing, at least at this point in time, is walking. Okay, I put in my music. Sometimes I don't, right? But most of the time I do, and that's like how the energy is being cleared, and I'm like going into that alternate energy, and that's where the information is coming from. Okay, is basically what it is. But it's like at the same time, I just go in and out of it now. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes I'm engaging with someone and I'm like, because I know how to get into the psychic energy. So it's just like, you know, when people talk about eating a certain diet and doing this, like I feel like all of that is energetic prep. So you can see what it feels like. Does that make sense? Like when you learn how to go in and out of the energy, like how to go into the psychic mind versus how to be grounded, it like becomes a part of your being. So you don't have to do it anymore. And then the other thing is too, I wrote about this in one of my books back in the day, which by the way, guys, check out my books. It's under my shop, but they're like one-liners. It's not like a whole like novel or whatever. It's just like one liner on every page. But basically I was saying how like enlightenment, the way that I see it at least, is like when you're able to meditate with your eyes open, right? So all of those things are tools, I feel like, for you to learn how to do it. Does that make sense? And then you learn it so you don't have to lie down and meditate. Like there's different types of meditation. Sometimes it's cooking, sometimes it's cleaning, sometimes, like I mentioned, it's walking, sometimes it's dancing, sometimes it's, you know, commuting somewhere, you know? So it's just like a matter of learning, like, what is it? Like, how do you go into that other frame of mind to get the information, okay? So to answer your question, thank you. What about reading a book? That could be good too. Like anything that gets you guys like out of the logical mind. Do you know what I mean? Like anything that gets you guys into the creative realms, you're going into the psychic realms is really what it is, you know? Sometimes for some people it's drawing, for some people it's painting, for some people it's gardening, you know? Anything of the sort where it's like you can relax, because you have to be in a relaxed energetic state. And that's what I was saying earlier too, for sometimes like people when they're in relationships and they're with someone who stresses them out, you can't be in a relaxed state. So then you can't really go into like basically the psychic world in this way. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's unfortunate because the feminine energy on this earth plane, like people don't value it, okay? And they don't understand like what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like they don't understand, like the feminines down here too, right? Of course, like they don't know their role, but then the masculines don't know the role either. But it's like there needs to be a specific type of environment for the feminine energy to blossom, and that's within everybody, right? And it has to be an environment where there isn't really any external, you know, things that are either distracting you, stressing you, so on and so forth, but the whole structure is made so you can't be in that. Do you know what I mean? So you have to find your own way within the chaos to find your own like way of being able to relax the body, right? So, you know, for some people it could be going to yoga, to like whatever it is, some sort of mindfulness practice, okay, where you guys can go into this. But it's just like the whole reason for that is because if the feminine energy was actually in tune down here on this earth plane, that's within everybody, like the psychic energy, we would basically break down the energetic structure and the world wouldn't be the way that it is. But anyways, that's where we're at now. I'm glad that resonated, okay? So that's basically what it is. Fast mind, slow body feels psychic to you. Slow body, fast mind feels more astral. That's so interesting. I never thought about that. You said, yeah, you said note the state you enter and being it with you. Yeah, exactly. It merges, right? Like it starts to merge with your consciousness, and it's all connected to like a purification of the soul and a purification of the vessel. And this is what I mean by like when religious texts, like they teach truths and a lie, because there's a lot of truth in a lot of these texts. Unfortunately, I think that's where people get lost in translation, because then they believe the lie and they don't have the discernment. But you have to experience things to develop discernment. Does that make sense? Like, for example, when you're an extremely psychic person, you're going to be potentially put into a lot of dark scenarios or with a lot of dark people to see how the dark operates and to see how the dark moves, so you can have the discernment as to what is going on here. Okay, it might not be for everybody. Some people might be too energetically sensitive for that, but for others, like that's how they develop it, right? Or sometimes in like situations, you know, you have to learn to feel the body, and that's the struggle, because it's kind of related to what I was mentioning earlier in this live as well. Like this whole earth plane is created to disconnect people from their heart space, yes, and I don't mean that in a corny way, but also just like from their bodies, right? Like everything down here is all about, you know, quick gratification and fast, and do this and get the next thing. And then it's always like on to the next. And like those things aren't ever really truly going to be fulfilling. I really, really hope that makes sense. Like that's why people are always chasing the next thing, because it's like, you know, people get that thing maybe that they thought they wanted, but then they realize they romanticized it. And that's the thing, like, you know, in the best case scenario, everyone would get everything that they think they want in this life, you know, to see that that's not what they actually want. And then they would start like the soul journey. Like, does that make sense? I really, really hope that that does. So that's what it is, okay, in a nutshell. So all of these things are tools and techniques that are meant to help you get more in tune with the self, but it's like people don't understand, because then you have all the people that are going to be like, this is demonic, or they try things in the spiritual world, they're going to be like, this is demonic and that's demonic, and they're going to be like, you know, this practice is demonic, and it's like, those are actually your demons that are coming out. Does that make sense? It's like, the world is always showing you yourself, right? So it's not the practice that's demonic. It's just like, for example, when you start, you know, actually committing to the journey, you go into higher frequencies, and whatever's going on at the base of the spine comes up to the surface to be looked at, okay? And that's why you'll never have like a quick fix or quick solution to anything, because you have to look at all those things, you have to explore them, you have to transmute the energy, and you have to not engage with it anymore. I hope that makes sense. So that's kind of how you can heal too, but it's a struggle. Like, it's a journey. Honestly, it is a journey, but you have to be committed to it, and you have to see the benefits. So kind of like what I was explaining to you guys in terms of like me like weaning myself off of like the extreme like coffee that I used to drink, or like caffeine back in the day. For me, the benefit was, okay, I get to dream now. You know what I mean? And because I see the benefit in that, I kind of, you know, push through maybe that uncomfortable fogginess and feeling tired and all of that, right? To get to the end results. And I noticed that when I clear that, even more of my psychic energy would come online, right? And then certain things that you eat. So it's like, you don't always have to be in this energy. Like, I find that a lot of like the spiritual teachings disconnect people from the physical. You want to merge, right? It's like, you want to use these things maybe to clear and purify the vessel, maybe certain diets, fasting, all these things, so you can learn how to go in and out of these energies on your own, but still operate down here on this material plane, because it's a material plane at the end of the day. Does that make sense? I really, really hope that makes sense. Exactly. Oh, good. You said rising above polarization is a good way to awaken. Don't be married to anything, and truth will come. Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like the truth is one. Do you know what I mean? And that's the highest vibration, is truth, right? In my own opinion, because truth is authenticity. It encompasses love. And it's like, sometimes when you speak the truth, you know, it's not going to be like the spiritual bypassing, like, oh, like, you know, I have to keep everything like airy fairy. Like, sometimes you have to say the truth, so, you know, the other person can see it. They might get mad maybe in the moment, right? But it's like, it is what it is, you know, it'll set you free. You know what I mean? You know how people say like, the truth will first like, you know, annoy you. I'm going to try not to swear on here, but then eventually it'll set you free. Like, that's just what it is, right? So it's like, there is, at the end of the day, there's a truth resonance that you will feel within the self, right? And you can't budge from that, because the truth is the truth at the end of the day, right? And that's why sometimes, like, these days especially, I've noticed, like, when people are trying to scam others, you know, or they're trying to be like inauthentic to get something, for example, right? Or they're trying to like, you know, trick you or manipulate you. It's like, it doesn't work for them as much as it used to, maybe, because people, whether they're in tune or not, it doesn't really matter. You still feel some sort of vibration coming out of the person, right? Or like, you know, they're like shifty, or they're looking in this way, or they're like twitchy or whatever, right? So it's like, that's why it doesn't work in the long term. And like, anything ego driven ends up blowing up in people's faces. So you have to like mind the ego, okay? Is really what it is. Because if you do something for an ego driven reason, it ends up blowing up in your face, okay? Which I always see on social media. Like, all the scammers always get exposed, which is so nice to see, because you see that they were scammers from the beginning, right? So if you're doing something for an ego driven reason, because of the frequency that we're at right now, it comes out, okay? So you always have to check the ego. Like, am I doing this for an ego driven reason? You have to explore the lower 3 chakras, okay? Oh my gosh, as before, I know I got so passionate, but it's like, on here you can't say certain things. So is this, I'm not a Taurus. I do get that a lot though. You said, and it's usually the religious people who call it demonic. Exactly. They don't have the eyes to see that it's actually spiritual, because they are enslaved with beliefs that make them feel small and powerless. Yeah, the thing is with religious people, okay, give me 1 second, you guys. Okay, I'm back. Okay, the issue with religious people is they engage in things and they don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. They're just gonna be like, it says it here. You have to understand why you're doing what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? So then, I wrote about this on my threads, you guys. What happens, especially within religion, is like, first of all, a lot of the practices are outdated, okay? So because it's outdated, it actually pulls people into the lower realms. Does that make sense? Like, it turns, their practices actually turn demonic, which is so ironic, okay? So it's like, okay, look at it this way. because everything is two truths and a lie at the end of the day. So for example, we're here vibrationally, right? Back in the day, maybe religion was here, okay? And the collective was here. So hold on, actually, no, that's now. Let's say religion was here, or like the practices people would do were like higher, right? Than the collective. People engaging in those rituals and practices bring them up, you know, and you know, it worked for a period of time. Then the collective gets to that level, okay, because that's been transmuted. But it's like now people are trying to do these outdated things that are below the collective's consciousness. This is the collective's consciousness, okay? This is the outdated religious beliefs. It's not pulling you down. It turns into inverted magic, okay? Dark magic. It actually pulls you into the demonic realms, okay? So that's why a lot of the time religious people end up snapping, because not all of them allegedly, but a lot of them, they go into a psychosis version of their own and they snap because they're so fragmented. They're fragmented from the heart space. So this is what I mean, like you have to train the heart space. That's how you develop your discernment, okay? Because then you're like, okay, this feels off or this feels right. Like you have to understand why you're doing what you're doing. You can't just follow something that says in a book, like, you know, it doesn't work that way. And that's the unfortunate part, because in the religious text, they mix in two truths and a lie. People connecting to everything in the religious text, the ones who connect to the lie, it's actually pulling them into the demonic energies, actually the lower astral, or whatever way shape form you guys want to look at it, the dark energies. And then you'll see like these religious people who become unhinged, and then it's like you're killing like whoever, or you're engaging in like these WARs, and it's like, okay, what happened to love thy neighbor though? Like, isn't that like the first principle? Like you're going against your own, you know what I mean? And this is why I could never like deal with religious people, because they're in so much cognitive dissonance. Like, you know what I mean? They are so not integrated with their shadow, and they just think, and the thing that gets me the most with religious people, there's those people who are like, okay, now I'm like going into this religion, so everything that I've done in the past is now forgiven. Like, it doesn't work that way. Do you know what I mean? Like, people think they can do whatever they want, they can be whatever type of person, and then they just choose a religion, and now everything's going to be forgiven in the eyes of God because they did like their little prayer to go into that religion. Like, hello? Like, you still did those things, you know what I mean? You still have to deal with the repercussions of those actions, right? So they don't understand, like, they don't understand what's going on. Exactly. Fear-based living is what we are leaving behind. Oh, thank you, BK. That's so nice. Send me an email. I like to meet people first. You said religious people also project instead of going within. Exactly. They look for happiness on the outside instead of realizing heaven is within. Exactly. You said all religions got corrupted by dark energies. Exactly. And the text got changed. Exactly. Proper understanding got lost, and people are just humbling in the dark now. Exactly. And they remove the feminine energy out of all of the religious things. Okay. Even when I talk about, because like you have, for example, like even Buddhism, for example, like that's maybe not considered to be a religion, but like a philosophy, like there's things in there that are also flawed. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like seeing things through a shadow masculine lens. So it's like, it's all of them. Do you know what I mean? Like it's all of these sorts of belief systems that are imposed on humanity. Like you have to still have the discernment to see like what resonates, you know? So you have to take what resonates, leave behind what does not. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. You said you were a caregiver, narcissist exes. Oh my gosh, so sorry to hear that, T. I hope you're out of those situations. You said you think that it might be the liminal space that I'm describing. Maybe. I'm not sure what that is. I can Google it after this live though. You said the strong Uranus energy helps a lot too. I have Uranus in my chart, yes. You said, hey, Barbara, I mean Uranus aspects. You said, hey, Barbara, I'm Cancer moon in the 7th house, opposing to Capricorn, Neptune in the 1st house. Any insight? Cancer moon in the 7th. And then you have Capricorn, Neptune. Okay, Capricorn, Neptune is the generation, but the moon opposing Neptune, you didn't see the mother clearly. You don't see feminines clearly. And then your emotional world, you don't see clearly either. So you probably merge to a lot of people around you also being a Cancer moon. Trying to stay away from substances. The moon to Neptune aspect needs to try to stay away from substances. Obviously, you guys have the free will to do what you want, but again, the substances pull you out of body even more. Neptune in the 1st, you don't see yourself clearly, okay? So there's a lot going on here with codependency, connected to the mother, you know, the absence of the mother because of the Cancer moon, like emotional neglect, and then kind of feeding into what other people want for you or what other people are projecting on you, okay? That's what's going on. He said love is a form of truth. Truth is, yes, exactly, Nate. You are on point. Yes, truth does supersede love. Aligning with your true self by abandoning beliefs, conditioning, and labels will give you the capacity to love. Exactly. What else are you guys saying here? Yes, everything is nuanced. And it depends from person to person. Like, you're not ever gonna have a one size fits all. You know what I mean? That's why, like, I always tell you guys, like, explore, like, take things with a grain of salt, because it's like, even back to the meditation question, like, different types of meditation are gonna work for different people, you know? Like, it's not all going to be someone lying down or someone sitting in, you know, this position and like looking at a dot on the ground. Like, maybe that works for some people because everyone has a different type of energy within their body, right? So it could be different forms of meditation. It's just a matter of learning what works for you and how can you switch into the psychic mind, okay? And of course, healing. You have to come out of the lower chakras, you guys. Like, that's like number one. Okay, let's see. What are you guys saying here? You said, which house or house lord, so ruler, should people focus on clearing things they absorb from people during the day? You're right on jobs taking too much time for people to get better. Yeah, they take a lot of time and then you absorb even there. I'm trying to think. I'm not sure what house would be like for you to focus on, okay, in terms of clearing things. Like, what house will help you with clearing things in a natal chart. But check out my video, like, for any of you guys who resonate with any of that, like, if you absorb a lot from people, check out my video called How to Stay Grounded as a 12 House Person, because I give tips in there. I also have a few, like, check out my metaphysical playlist, you guys, because I talk about also how entities attach. I talk about all these metaphysical concepts, okay? And it's basically all rooted in coming out of the lower chakras and the wounds, because that's usually what people hook into. They hook into the wounds that are going on in your lower chakras, and then they start siphoning your energy, okay? Is really what it is. You got to clear that to go into the higher chakras, essentially, okay? I'm just back up here, seeing what else you guys say up here or said. How do you control thoughts? You have to close your vessel energetically, is really what it is. Like, you can do all of these things that we talked about today. Like, you can go to yoga, breathing, breath work, like, to slow your thoughts, okay? Like, to slow them down, because people have so many thoughts throughout a day. But the only thing I can honestly recommend for you guys, because it's honestly such a journey, okay? It's a whole process, but you have to come out of the lower chakras, because a lot of thoughts that people have aren't even theirs, because we're all telepathic. So if you're merging to people, you're probably picking up on their thoughts unconsciously without even realizing, okay? So just keep this in mind. So it's this. So it's like, you have to learn yourself is really what it is. Like, who are you? What are your likes, wants, needs, and desires? What are your fears? What are your wounds? What's going on in the lower chakras? Those are the biggest things, because that's where the thoughts get mostly implanted. It's connected to your thoughts. It's connected to your fears, okay, in the lower chakras. And then you have to clear the energy of like people around you off of you, okay? And then there's different ways of doing that. Sometimes even being by the ocean helps a lot, okay? Or cities by the ocean, like they have like the salt water in the air. So it's like you're constantly like getting cleansed energetically, okay? But obviously not everyone's gonna live there. So you can kind of simulate this by doing like saltwater baths or like, you know, salt showers. If you guys have like Epsom salts, you guys can like just like kind of rub it on yourselves too to clear the energy. But it's this, okay? Prayer helps, you know, all these things. Like cleansing the energy. Like, you know, this is what I mean by like two truths and a lie. Like, some religions, they pray a certain amount of times in a day, and I can see where they're coming from, because they're basically trying to cleanse their energy. So in one way, shape, or form, like people who are unaware and they feed into that, like their energy will be cleansed, right? Because they are going through this prayer. But at the same time, like when you're praying, like what are you actually saying? Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes you can just think it in your mind. Like, because we're telepathic, you can just think it in your mind in terms of being like, okay, like I'm calling in protection right now, and like that's all you need to do. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be anything extravagant, because that's my thing. Like, you have to question everything. So if you're reciting a specific type of prayer, it's like, what is in there? Do you know what I mean? Or is this like an inversion thing? Like, I don't know. It's really, it's all about discernment at the end of the day, you guys. That's all that I can say. Let's see. You said, what if there's a north node and a sun conjunction? I think I answered that. And then you said your north node and sun is in the exact same Gemini 12th house. So the father is actually a past life enemy, okay, because of the sun in the 12th there, and masculines in your life are actually past life enemies. I think part of your purpose in this lifetime is actually, interestingly enough, speaking of discernment, learning the discernment to figure out who are these quote unquote past life enemies that are coming through to throw you off your path, okay? I hope that makes sense. Okay, and they're going to be masculines or people who operate out of that masculine energy. And again, enemy doesn't mean somebody who's doing something malicious. It's just people who come down here who energetically kind of waste your time to throw you off your path. Okay, they bring in chaos, they distract you, these things. Okay, like the trickster energies, like those are like the enemies. Okay, You said, do I believe we're shifting or evolving in consciousness? Like they say how the fourth density or dimension and people could really be seeing paranormal stuff because of it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's very slowly happening. Like, are we going to see it in our lifetime? I'm not sure. But it's like there is definitely a slow progression, okay, in terms of people getting more in tune with their spirituality, us evolving, yes, okay, but is it going to happen, you know, in this lifetime for everybody? I'm not sure, okay, because when I see the collective and where the collective's at, like there's been a lot of progress, okay, but there's a lot more to go, okay? But a lot of like the new age stuff and like the new age beliefs to me are like fourth density beliefs, okay? Because it's like they're still trying to materialize the spiritual world. Does that make sense? And you can't really materialize the spiritual world, you know? Like people who think you have to dress a certain way or act a certain way or whatever. It's not that. It's like an individual journey, right? You can be the most everyday regular person and you're having this whole journey within, okay? So this is what I mean by like, yes, I see it. Like it's actually the lower fourth dimension. Like that's the way that I see it. Like a lot of like the new age stuff, because even like somebody recently was talking about contracts, right? And it's like, I don't believe in contracts. Like in this, you know, when people in the new age say, oh, you made this soul contract. It's like contracts are a construct of the 3D realm, okay? Of this physical realm that we are in. A soul can't make a contract. I went on this rant on my threads, okay, a few months ago now. A soul can't make a contract. Like a soul is a soul. Like it's just what it, that's just the construct of this like earth plane, okay, of this material realm. Like that a contract exists down here. So I don't believe in soul contracts. Like I don't believe in that. Like you can experience this like while you're operating out of like the Saturnian realm, okay, like under like the Saturnian structure. Maybe you'll have these contracts come through or like people come through, but I find like just from what I've observed, the higher up you go in frequency and you kind of get out of the sight of the Saturnian structure, you actually get people sent your way that are sent your way to throw you off your path. And I'm like, is that a contract then? It's not a contract. You know what I mean? So this is what I mean by like two truths and a lie. Like it's in the new age too. So it's like a lot of like people are starting to gain some sort of spiritual knowledge, but it's like it's still fourth dimensional because they're trying to materialize it. Does that make sense? Like they're trying to understand it through a material lens. And that's the struggle sometimes when like too much information gets spread too quickly because people's bodies aren't equipped. Like you have to go through a certain, again, purification. When I say purification, it's like cleansing of the soul, releasing, you know, like any shadow behaviors and all these types of things to be able to process, or like for your body to be able to hold, let's say, certain types of information, right? Or for you to be able to merge with like, let's say, higher vibrations. Because like I mentioned earlier, everybody talking about something being demonic, those are people's demons that are coming to the surface, okay? When they engage in certain things, like for example, you know, certain individuals, I'm not going to name them, who like, let's say, said everything is demonic now in terms of like cards and oracle cards, but it's like you built like a multi-million-dollar empire off of this. So it's just like you may have been operating out of your ego. Maybe you kind of were like scamming people or something because for you to get to that level, and now you're saying it's demonic. It's like these dark energies are probably like coming after you because it's like the darker, lower vibrational energies are always going to try to like promise you things in the material realm. So sometimes people unconsciously merge to the dark energies, but all the time, and you'll see this, like those dark energies like end up, you know, everything ends up being exposed at the end of the day. So you'll see a lot of the time people who did like scammy types of things end up always being exposed, right? And that's because, again, they got tricked by these darker energies in one way, shape, or form, but it's their ego. Do you know what I mean? And it's like the lower three chakras. Does that make sense? So it's like, at the end of the day, there is some sort of rule here still, you know what I mean? Like we're still operating out of like the karmic energy under the Saturnian structure. So it's like, that's all happening under the Saturnian structure. Like Saturn is karma. So we're like energetically like operating out of that. Does that make sense? So it's like, yes, in this realm, right? Like the contracts exist, right? But it's like outside of this realm, like a soul doesn't have a contract. If you don't want to come back to this realm, like you should have the free will, if we actually have free will to decide that. Do you know what I mean? And be like, no, like I'm done here. You know what I mean? Like I don't believe this whole, you make a contract, now you're deciding to come back. Like I don't know if you guys ever watch people talking about like near death experiences and like their videos and so on and so forth, where they're like explaining like what happened, and it's always the same type of story. It's always like they tried to exit the realm and they're like, oh my gosh, it was so nice, but then like this person brought them back down, or that person, or this or that or whatever, right? And it's just like those are like the tricks, I think, like on these like realms, right, to kind of bind people down here. I don't know, does that make sense? Let's see what else are you guys saying down here. Exactly. You don't have free will if you have a contract on your soul. Exactly. A soul can't make a contract. It's something that, it's like a hijacking energy that takes place down here on this earth plane. It's a new age belief, okay? When they tell you, you made a contract with this person in a previous lifetime, like that's all under this Saturnian structure. It's like the deception to get people to keep coming back to fuel this plane, okay? Does that make sense? Cancer rising woman, oh my goodness, you said you don't feel seen for your strength. How can a Cancer rising woman show her strength? I've noticed a lot of Cancer risings. I actually have a lot of Cancer rising friends. A lot of Cancer risings I've noticed are nurses, they are social workers, they are, let's say, like a speech pathologist, like a behavioral therapist. Like they're always in these realms, and it's a struggle because those like jobs, like nurses for example, also get burnt out because again, there is like the feminine energy, the giving feminine energy that like gets taken advantage of under the system, okay? So that's the struggle to like feel seen for your strength, because it's like your strength lies on the feminine energy. But the question is like, is that seen down here on this earth realm, like in this earth realm? Does that make sense? Exactly. There is no soul contract. Like I don't believe in these contracts. Like that's like the fourth dimensional, and that's a fourth dimensional thing, right? It's like a belief that is material. Do you know what I mean? It's a material belief. Like contracts exist down here in the physical realm, and the whole reason contracts exist, like actual physical contracts, okay, is because people don't trust each other, okay? So they have to have a contract to be like, if you don't do this, I'm gonna sue you, right? That's what a contract is. Like you sign a contract, it's like you're gonna sign a contract, you're gonna behave this way at work, or you're gonna do this type of job, or for this type of like investment or property or whatever. Like you're signing a contract because there is no trust down here on this earth plane, right? So that's a construct of this earth realm, which is a third dimensional realm, right? So I'm saying is like people start learning about spirituality, and then they take the third dimensional concept, which is a contract, and then they try to put it on the soul. But the soul can't have a contract. Like a soul is free. So it's like, what's actually going on down here? It's like they're trying to bind people because of their contracts to keep coming back down here. And it's like, why do you have to keep coming back down here? That's what I mean by like, you know, when I was younger, because I always believed in the spiritual world. So when I was younger, I always used to think that it was like specific people who it's their last lifetime, right? But now the more that I learn, I think you can just decide, because if you have actual free will, you can make the decision. But the thing is, if you make the decision in your mind, okay, and this is all connected, if you make the decision in your mind, you're like, this is my last lifetime down here on earth, you have to be prepared to clear everything energetically that you need to clear, unbind yourself, and then figure out how to exit the realm when the time comes, of course, okay? So you don't incarnate again, okay? So that's my new belief now. I think anyone can decide, but you have to do that energetic work to unbind yourself, okay? Because these are all like constructs of this physical material plane that keep people bound down here. And then you feel like, okay, that whole thing when people like have their near-death experiences, and when they talk about it, like this person or entity, or they showed you your great grandma or whoever, okay, then they kind of bring you down, okay? Because another thing too that I want to mention to you guys, because I talked about this on my threads, okay, I find it so interesting because people talk about like ancestor this, ancestor that, but it's like at the same time, first of all, okay, like most people don't even get along with their like actual like family and the physical, like their current family, right? So it's like, okay, what, like why are the ancestors quote unquote being put on such a pedestal? Like there's that energy. But the other thing is too, like sometimes ancestor quote unquote energy like wants to continue living, okay, through people, right? So that's the other whole concept of like rituals that people do, whether it's in religion, whether it's in culture, and so on and so forth, because it's like that ancestor energy wants to continue living through you by you doing those things or those customs or whatever it is. But it's like some of those things don't serve the time that we're living in anymore, but the energy like kind of latches on in this way to people, okay, because they feel like energetically, if you cut that cord, okay, from that energy, from that belief, from that, you know, rituals that you did or custom or whatever, okay, it's like the ancestor energy then feels like they will be forgotten energetically, like this is happening energetically. And the biggest human wound is to feel like you're forgotten or like you didn't exist, okay? That's why they literally put people into like, you know, the biggest penalty sometimes is like putting people into solitary confinement or like silence or whatever, where they're not engaging with anybody, because it's like the whole thing where it's like if the tree fell and nobody heard it fall, did it really exist? So this is like, it's complex because like the true, like the core human wound or one of the core human wounds, it's like, you know, to feel like you didn't exist, right? Or like, you know, that you didn't exist is really what it is. So it's like, this is why the ancestor energy like keeps trying to like live through people. Does that make sense? So like it like continues living through people by people engaging in all of these, like, again, rituals or like this belief, that belief, or we have to do this on this type of day or that type of day, or I can't do it on a Sunday, it has to be on a Monday, it has to be on this day, that day. Like, what is this? Like, it's just like so restrictive, you know? Some crystals, Steph, yes, but again, you have to have the discernment to see which ones are actually legit, okay? Because it's so interesting. I was going to show you guys because I used to also collect crystals, I guess now it's a collection, but I would get them and then I would meditate with them to see like the information that would come through. The little small ones, like, you know, get a little tiny one, like, can it really do anything? You know what I mean? And it's like, are any of these, you know, the smaller ones, like you have to have the discernment to feel the energy of that particular thing, right? So it's this, but then I have some bigger ones, and it's not like it's a size thing. I think it's like the quality of what it is that you're getting. You have to like be able to see, like, does this actually have a vibrational frequency connected to it, okay? So yes, I do think crystals are legit, but at the same time, are the crystals that are for sale, like, are all of them legit? You know, you have to like feel it, right? You said, do you think if a family member passes, we should honor but let go? Yes, of course. Because first of all, if you're trying to hold on to them, you're binding them energetically to this earth plane, they're gone. So it's like, they're gone. You know what I mean? And that's the other thing too. It's like they teach you about death. And again, this is the trigger warning, so you can click off now, like, you know, if death is a sensitive topic for you. But it's like, they teach about death for it to be like this like super sad thing in the movies, the music, and all these things. And it's like, again, that's another thing too that like older generations maybe did, right? Where it's like, you know, I guess for them to still feel connected to this person, they're like always going to visit. But in my mind, I'm like, the soul is gone. Like the soul is long gone. Like, you think that soul is thinking about you? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they've left, right? So it's like, sometimes people like energetically like keep pulling that energy toward them to like kind of keep them, you know, their energy alive in one way, shape, or form, but you're actually energetically binding them in one way, shape, or form to this earth plane, okay? That's what's happening. Let's see, you said something you thought of literally today. You are your own witness. What else did you guys say in here? You said you think they come up with a contract thing to help people get over trauma and say they chose it. No, see, and that's the thing, and that's the other issue. Oh my God, don't get me started on that. When they say, oh, you chose this, you attracted this. No, I don't believe that either. I believe this earth plane is inverted. It's full of dark energy down here. It's very dark, you guys, down here, and everything is like topsy-turvy and upside down. Like, I don't believe any of that when they're like, oh, you know, you made this happen or you attracted this, like all these things. Like, I don't necessarily believe that, because a lot of the time it's like energetic targeting, okay? I find that it happens more often than not. And I'm not trying to put paranoia out there or fear, but that's just what I've observed. It's like, you'll see a lot of the time, like someone who has, let's say, like a lot of light energy, and I was just thinking about this the other day too. Okay, someone who has a lot of light energy, you know, maybe that kid gets bullied, okay, in school, or maybe they go through intense abuse. And the question is like, how did this person, according to the New Agers, how did they make that happen? Like, it's a kid, you know what I mean? Or like, you know, you can't help where you're born. Some people are born in like war-torn countries. Like, how did they pick that? You know what I mean? So this is what I don't agree with the New Age, when they're like, Earth is a school, and it's like, your soul here is here to learn. Like, you're gonna learn some things, but it's like, at some point, it's like, okay, well, if you're learning, then why is your memory wiped? Like, why do you not remember what happened in a previous lifetime? So it's just like, there's a lot of holes in like all these things that they are trying to teach, because this is the rant I went on in my previous life too, where I was like, okay, from my understanding, you know, if you're going to school, you're building on the knowledge that you have, right? You're not, you know, going to go to school and forget what you did in grade 1. And like, now you're going to learn how to read like every single year of your life. No, right? You're building on what you know. You're going to learn new words. You're going to add them to your vocabulary, but it's like, you learned how to read, right? So it's like, or you learn how to do math or whatever. So it's like, okay, so Earth is a school. Okay, it's a school, but you forget everything from your previous lives. Your memory gets swiped. No, it's like, no, there's something way more nefarious going on down here, and it's a very dark plane. Like, that's just what's going on, okay? You said, have I heard the NPC theory about people who live on this earth? Yes, are not actual souls and they're more like AI. Yeah, there are definitely NPCs. I see them all the time. They are like robots. Sometimes they're glitching. Sometimes they're malfunctioning. Like, for example, you know, when you see people out and about and they're just like doing strange things, or like, I can't think of an example right now, but yeah, no, definitely there are NPCs. There are definitely NPCs. I would say like 90%, maybe that's a high number, maybe it's less, but a lot of people are NPCs. A lot of people are NPCs. So here's what's going on, okay? Down here, you have a lot of people who are NPCs, okay? Those are the ones who just like blindly follow things. And I notice that when I travel sometimes, I'm like, this feels like a very well, like, you know, constructed like simulation type of situation right now. Like when I go somewhere and it's like, you see everyone's kind of doing the job like an NPC, right? Like their role, for example. So it's like the cashier at the grocery store, and it's just like so strange. Like sometimes I go to certain places, especially when I travel, and I'm like, this feels like a fake city or something on that sort. It's like really trippy actually sometimes, but yeah. So you have the NPC people who are like keeping the show going, okay? And they're just like the everyday types of like randoms, okay, who are, you know, just like operating in the background. So they're there. Then you have the demonic people, okay? And then there's also people who aren't human down here. But yeah, a lot of like people also, okay, you have the actual demonic people, right? Who are like literally like dark energy, and they're, in my opinion, not human because they're like demonic. You have the true humans. The true human operates out of the heart space, in my own opinion. And then you have the people who kind of got lost between the cracks, who are potentially human, but maybe went through a lot of trauma, so they're trapped in their lower chakras, so they have dark energy operating through them, which is a lot of people too, and that's why you have to master your lower chakra wounds. But I would say like that's what this earth plane consists of, okay? So it's this, and then again, the true human operates out of the heart space, I find. Like, they have compassion and like all these things, you know? You said, are sociopaths so-called NPCs? I feel like sociopaths are more like demonic possession, in my opinion. Because how can you do those things, you know, to other people? You said, do you think sensitive people attract more energy vampires? Yeah, like, and I don't think it's anything that you're doing. I think it's just like when you have a lot of light energy, you get targeted because you're a threat to the construct, okay? And that's just what it is, okay? You become an energetic threat, or people who become awakened, or people who become aware, or people who embrace like their healing journey. Like, you guys will see sometimes for some people, they can be at the peak of their career or the peak of like, you know, their life, or everything's going great, and then this demonic person gets sent to them, put into their path. If that person is unaware of what their flaws are, because it always comes back down to the self, that person, the demonic person, hooks into the flaw. Okay, I have a video on here called The Tragic Flaw. It might be under my metaphysical playlist as well, where I talk about this too, okay? They hook into the person, they hook into whatever their wound is, and then they drain them, and then their whole life goes into chaos, and then it goes everything, okay? So you will see this a lot of the time. I noticed that just from public figures and observing them, but a lot of the time, if you're unintegrated, because here is the thing, you don't have to be fully healed to do what you want to do down here on this earth plane, but there's a huge but here. The desire can be stronger than the wound, so you can create whatever it is that you want to create, but if the wound is there, and you're at that peak, or whatever it is, or you're like vibing high, or whatever, or you're feeling good, but you haven't integrated the shadow is going to catch up with you, is really what it is. And then it's like, that ends up being like the tragic flaw. Like, it's a term in literature where it's like, you know, your wound or whatever it is ends up being your flaw. So I see that sometimes with, like, for example, you know, people, for example, like, let's say there was a huge wound when you were younger, and maybe you didn't have a lot of friends, and maybe you always fear missing out, for example. And it's like, you could be at like your peak, you know, elevation in this life or whatever, and like doing what you want to do and like enjoying life and whatever. But because you haven't integrated that wound, you could fall into a group, for example, of friends, okay? And, you know, these friends, you might be codependent as well. You know, maybe they introduce you to something else or whatever it is, okay? And then those people can kind of, in one way, shape, or form, you're engaging in it, right? But it's because you haven't integrated that wound, and then it ends up being your downfall, okay? So you have to be integrated. I hope that makes sense, okay? You said Cancer writing your heart space is on your sleeve. Nice. Hey, Mystic Journal. You said NPCs are real, just very ignorant, yeah. You said, have I heard about gang stalking? People report that they are being stalked by different people everywhere, and in some cases there are enormous amounts of individuals involved, in making it seem more as a paranoia. Yeah, I don't want to feed into the paranoia of that, okay, for people. I have heard of the term, but it's hard to say, like, because there's actual stalking sometimes that takes place. I've heard some people's stories too with like actual stalking, but I've heard different like expressions of gang stalking too. Like, there's a type of energy that takes place too sometimes. Like, for example, okay, this happens sometimes. Have you guys ever noticed you guys go into a place to like pay something, and all of a sudden it's like very crowded, but like there's nobody there, and like those people are there to like siphon your energy? I hope that makes sense. Like, for example, like, let's say you go to an ice cream shop. I'm seeing an ice cream shop in my mind, and it's like, let's say like it's like whatever, like let's say it's a Monday and it's like 1 p.m. when everyone's supposed to be at work, or maybe like 2 p.m. whatever. Let's say it's not lunchtime or any sort of hour, maybe 11 a.m. whatever, okay? Let's say it's some sort of hour where there usually isn't anybody there, or the evening or whatever, okay? And it's like you're used to going, there's nobody there, and now all of a sudden it's like busy, and there's like all these people, or like you were looking to see what ice cream you want, and like this whole line formed. Like, that is a form of like energy also siphoning that happens when you have a lot of light energy. Maybe you guys are going to start noticing this. You go into places and now all of a sudden it's crowded because they're like trying to get a piece of your energetic light, okay? You guys, if you guys would like your own natal chart reading, synastry reading, progress natal chart reading, mini synastry reading, mini natal chart reading, send me an email, you guys, and we will go from there. Thank you so much for being here, for being a part of the live, for being a part of the channel, for your questions, for your likes, your shares, and your subscribes. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of the day or the evening, wherever you guys are, whatever you're tuning in. I'm going to sign off now. Bye.